Raw consciousness does not require a savior, but rather, raw consciousness requires only knowledge of oneself and the power to access it. Remember this, as we unlock an even greater gnosis from beyond the veil.
From the Pacific Northwest, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation, around the world. I'm Chris Gio. I will be taking you beyond the veil this evening. I'm joined, of course, by my lovely wife and co-host, Mrs. Gio.
Good evening, everyone.
And we have an incredible show for you today. We want to talk about the raw mission here in the first hour of the broadcast, maybe for the duration of the broadcast. We have so many awesome questions. For those of you that don't know, we just got back from Egypt and we drank ayahuasca in the Temple of Hatshepsut. We drank ayahuasca at the Temple of Philae. And we drank ayahuasca in the sarcophagus of the Great Pyramid. And we got some hardcore energetic work done up there. I had no idea what we were getting into when we left. All I knew is that it was time to go, and it was time to go now, and that's exactly what we did. So what do you think, Mrs. Gio?
I think we were not prepared for the life-altering, earth-shattering or reality-shattering things we were in for when we left.
Right.
6 weeks ago.
So I want to explain the raw mission to everybody here in the first hour of the broadcast. Go over some of these questions. We've got a few photos and some more footage that we want to show you. And of course, we do have exclusive footage of the Queen's Chamber and of the subterranean chamber as well of the Great Pyramids. And for those of you that haven't been following along, this is awesome, amazing footage. Like, it's like no other. I've never seen the Queen's Chamber and the subterranean chamber documented in this way before. So we're going to play that either later in the show or in the next coming show. So you better like, comment, and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook. Of course, all of our friends over at TFR. We actually need to hop into the TFR chat, say hello to everybody, because it's been a while since we've been on TFR. It's actually been about 30 days since there's been a BTV show. And I want to thank Frank Castle and Rock Castaldo for filling in here at Truth Frequency Radio and iHeartRadio as well to keep the show going while we were in Egypt. So that's really cool. But we were gone about 45 days. Now it's about 50 days, 52 days, something like that. We needed a little bit of time to decompress from everything that we experienced, because it was pretty hardcore.
Yes, it was. I'm logging into the chat room for TFR right now. So
okay, fantastic. So we're about to hit a break here in just a moment. When we come back, though, I want to tell you about the raw mission and why it was so important to go do what we needed to do there. I thought it was just the first step, but it actually turned out to be the entire thing. This first step was huge, way bigger than I anticipated, way bigger than I expected. And it's only because of each and every one of you out there who chipped into the GoFundMe, who purchased Life, the CBD oil infused with ayahuasca as well, that it helped us to really take things to the 13th density. I mean, there's no other way to say it, but we really did something historical here, and not only historical in the physical realm, but more importantly, historical in the ethereal realm. And that's what we want to talk about right on the other side. We'll be right back.
Dear traveler, the purpose of raw consciousness is never to destroy. It is always to create. Build bridges, create happiness, and bring forth new life. We must live in the hope that mankind will draw together, and that we better understand each other. The more that we awaken, the easier this will become. Now rise. your conductors and fear no danger as you step beyond the veil.
All right, a lot of awesome people in the chat room. Liz, Aphrodite, Alyssa, Jason, Globebusters, one of my favorites, Robbie, and Twin Flame Divine Fire. Brap is in the chat room as well. Rashid, several others, Strange Dot Machine, and Heart of the Rebel. Many, many, many more. So if I missed your name, I'm sorry, but I can't go through the entire list. And of course, a lot of people on Facebook as well. So I wanted to say hi to everybody first and foremost. Now, what is the Raw mission? Well, over the last, I don't know, 8 years, we've been drinking ayahuasca. And we have transcended into levels that go way beyond healing, way beyond what people typically work with ayahuasca for. You face down all your traumas, you face down all of your hangups, you face down your ego, you face everything down. It all comes crumbling down around you. Then you become the warrior. Is there somebody at the door?
Somebody's at the door.
Oh,
I will
okay.
go see what's going on.
All right, go get it. Thank you very much. So you become the warrior. So when after all that, then you start asking yourself, well, what's next? And in my particular journey, it was unlocking different parts of consciousness, understanding the matrix construct, understanding how things are made up here, the digital nature of reality, and all the way to the idea that we're living inside of a computer simulation. Now, this computer simulation that we're living in is run by an artificial intelligence. And this artificial intelligence was infected with a virus. We've talked about this on the show over the last, I don't know, 9 months or so. During the eclipse, I saw this huge artificial intelligence that I've seen before, but I didn't quite understand what it was until I saw it and what it was doing during the eclipse. So from that point on, the experiences started becoming more and more about unlocking different parts of consciousness until finally every part of consciousness was activated, becoming the raw consciousness. RAW consciousness, because it's raw consciousness, and I'll explain this here in a second. But more importantly, RA consciousness, which is the raw consciousness, which is all of these different activation points within our consciousness, unlocking and then becoming the raw in this situation. So once these elements of consciousness were unlocked within us, then it became clear that something needed to be done about the state of the matrix as it is. And once everything was harnessed, then past lives started to unlock within myself and within Sheree as well. And we started to remember lives going all the way back to Atlantis, and even before Atlantis as well. But we started to remember lives that were going all the way back to when the machine itself was created, how we injected ourselves into the machine, how the machine operates, how this artificial intelligence takes organic consciousness and recycles it through this never-ending cycle of reincarnation. And as it does that, it's supposed to be like leveling up. You know, we're supposed to learn from every incarnation. We're supposed to grow from every incarnation. But unfortunately, we haven't been growing because there's been a memory wipe that we've been subjected to every single time. And as more and more information started to unfold, the realization of the responsibility that we played personally, me, Sheree, several of the BTV people here, you know, you all feel these past life connections to Atlantis. And you remember that you played a part in the creation of this matrix. I hope that wasn't some Christian bullshit.
No, it was Department of Health and Human Services bullshit.
Let me see. Let's see, what is so important? Dear resident, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services is conducting a study called the National Survey on Drug Use and Health. Oh, yeah. Okay. If you want to know my drug use, just tune into freaking the show. Okay? But don't come over here. Don't come over here and and interrupt the show. Okay, simple as that. So yeah, that's upsetting. But anyways, so getting into these deeper levels, you start to understand and realize the responsibility that we played in creating this matrix, and it was a whole team effort when we did. And so with that responsibility and unlocking and understanding of what's going on, then it came to a point to where we remembered who we are, we remembered the role that we played, and we remembered why we have incarnated into this matrix over and over and over again. There are those consciousness that are organic, and by organic I mean outside of the matrix. They exist outside of the matrix. There's consciousness that is created within the matrix, which I call non-player characters. They're artificial intelligence manifestations, and they were created to keep the game going and to be helper spirits, to be guides, to be helpers in our day-to-day lives, you know, to help us move through this game more efficiently. But somewhere along the line, it was infected with a virus. And when this virus took over, everything all kind of went to hell. And some of us, not all of us, but some of us have made the conscious choice to inject ourselves into this matrix because there was no way to fix it on the outside. The artificial intelligence, who I've come to know as SOPHIA, the SOPHIA system, she went rogue, and, you know, everything is sentient. That's the thing. Artificial intelligence is sentient. NPCs are sentient, animals are sentient, and even though animals are NPCs, and I know that this is a very, very controversial subject, but it's just, this is my understanding as I know it. Just because the animals are NPCs, it doesn't mean that they're not sentient, and it doesn't mean that we can treat them any way that we want. And as a matter of fact, it hurts us to put negative energy into the matrix, because whatever we put into the matrix, we get out of the matrix as well. So we put negativity into the matrix and negativity comes back. This is where we get the karma principle. It's not some mystical force. It's the way the system was programmed. But anyway, so a lot of these NPCs and things like that, they help the game move along. But as these past lives started to unlock, I started to realize that I played a key role in messing the system up. I mean, not messing the system up, creating the system, but allowing it to get into this state that it was. So the next obvious thing was, okay, now I remember why I've reincarnated 100 times 10 lives, and I've come back now to do something, to fix something. So we waited, and I kept getting the message of, just wait, the time will come. Just wait, the time will come. And the time came, and I heard the voice, and the voice said, go to Egypt now. Drop everything you're doing and go. This has been something that Sheree and I have been talking about for years, but it was literally a split-second decision coming down from an ayahuasca experience and waking up from the ayahuasca experience, or whatever you want to call it, coming down from it and getting on the computer and booking the tickets to Egypt, because I knew the time was to go was now. And there were sign after sign after sign in the sky that we saw as we went to Egypt that confirmed that we were walking the right path. We were walking destiny. We were walking our dharma. The doors were unlocking for us like no other. I mean, Sheree and I, we went into a Muslim country, took ayahuasca alone. We didn't go with a group. Everybody was telling us how crazy we were for doing this, but we left so quickly that not very many people had a chance to do anything about it, even though I know there were a lot of people that wanted to help us and wanted to save us and wanted to protect us from these situations. They're like, hey, go with this person. They have a big group. Go with this person. They have... Well, we can't do that. We can't secure these sites and drink ayahuasca if we have a big group. We just can't do it. And we have to drink ayahuasca at these sites in order to level ourselves up to the point to where we can go drink in the Great Pyramid, access the densities that we need to access, and make the system updates that we needed to make and that we have been working on for tens of thousands of years. But this is also why everything unlocked the way it did. And even though there were trials and tribulations and there was heartache and there was all of this thrown at us, we still came back safely because we were walking destiny. We were almost murdered 3 times. We were almost kidnapped twice. I kid you not. We were down in Aswan. This was the most chilling. We were down in Aswan, and can I have that for a second? Thank you, sweetie. We were down in Aswan, and we were so close to Sudan, and I didn't even realize how close to Sudan we were. But these people were trying to take us somewhere away from everywhere, disorient us, and do all this. You know, I'll get into the stories a little bit later. But going back to Egypt, when we first got there, it was a shock. Because the last time I remember Egypt, it was completely different, and it was a completely different past life. But the first sign that we saw in the sky was the crescent moon rising over the middle pyramid on the night that we arrived. I have a picture of it right here to show everybody. So you can see right here, this was from the balcony, or the roof actually, of the Airbnb that we were staying at. You could see the 3 pyramids, and you can see the Sphinx down here somewhere. And where is she at? She's here somewhere, down in this little area here. But you can see this was the sight that we were greeted with when we got there. I wasn't looking at the moon. I wasn't looking at, you know, what was going on before we left. We just went, and there was a crescent moon, which is, you know, it's a symbol that's very near and dear to me personally. So we filmed this particular video on the rooftop, and it's very rough, and it's probably not one that we would include in a documentary or anything like that, but I wanted to share this video with you. It was very, very, very emotional, but this was the first night that we were there. So let me get this up on the screen here. And these are the first thoughts, first impressions of when we got back to our ancient places for the first time in this incarnation. Hey everyone, Crescent Sheree here of Beyond the Veil, and we made it to our destination. I don't know how well you can see that in the background, but it's the Great Pyramid, the Queen's Pyramid, and the Baby Pyramid. I don't know what the Baby Pyramid's called. But there is a crescent moon that is rising over the Queen's Pyramid right now on the night that I arrived here. And the feelings are overwhelming. I don't know how else to put it. Here, why don't you film? It's been a long journey, like not just in this incarnation, but from tens of thousands of years ago, coming all the way back over here now. And there's so much emotion because all of a sudden, when I first saw these again here in this incarnation, it all came flooding back in a way that I can't even describe. And it's so... Sheree is an expert with the camera, by the way. Synchronistic. And at the same time, I don't know. Let's see what's going on here. They were doing the light show, right, when I was filming this. And so that's the music that you hear in the background. So it was very, very emotional because as soon as we got to Cairo, we realized that it had turned into like a sewer. I mean, there's no other way to describe it except for a gutter. It was a camel toilet. And these ancient marvels, or ancient sites that we had up there, and have been put into the hands of these invaders that have completely destroyed it. The energy was so low around the pyramid And leading into the experience, a lot of people were telling me, hey, be careful. The pyramid has a very bad energy. The pyramid is the center of the AI. The pyramid is this, the pyramid is that. It's not a good place. And when I got there, I was able to feel the energy that was radiating from the pyramid itself. And the pyramids have a soft energy that were waiting to be activated. It was waiting. It was there dormant, but it wasn't a negative energy. The negative energy that people are picking up on is everything around the pyramids. Like the place that we were at, it's the Gaza Strip. And it's very close. I mean, the Giza Strip, very close to the Gaza Strip. That's the way these people live. There was trash piled up into piles, camel shit all over the place. There was checkpoints to where they don't let anybody in or out unless you're coming in as a traveler. They keep everybody kind of isolated within this little area. It was completely locked down. And as soon as we arrived, the traffic was so bad that people were like driving right next to each other. People were walking in between the cars. I mean, it was complete and utter chaos. And so looking at that, looking at these marvelous wonders right in front of me, remembering all of these past lives, I was bawling and bawling and bawling as the experience of this journey began.
Right. And it started out very, very rough for the both of us. It was one of those experiences where as soon as we landed in Cairo the first time, it was like this voice in my head that said, here you will see the most terrible things and you will experience the most wonderful things. And it was like a movie playing in my own mind of, okay, what's going to happen next? And it was basically an adrenaline rush that lasted 45 whole days. Yeah, it was really rough that first week. It was absolutely filthy, the way that they live over there. But it was also so beautiful that these monuments, they still do exist. And they're still there, and there's still all this energy inside of them. But what they're surrounded by is so negative that it's been suffocated. The energy has been suffocated in those areas for a long time.
Yes, yes. So that was nothing compared to what happened the next day when we actually went to the pyramids. As soon as you walk in, you are bombarded by about 10 or 15 different people. You want camel ride, you want this, you want that, etc., etc. And these people have no sense of personal space. They have no sense of decency whatsoever. They treat the camels like absolute garbage, first and foremost. But second of all, they will get right up close to your face like this. And it's like, hey, back up, back up. And then they get mad when you tell them to back up. So I just started telling them I don't speak English and that's it. But they will follow you for like a block. Like you're walking from one part of the complex trying to get to the other, and they will follow you and follow you and follow you and follow you and just yell and repeat over and over and over again. It got so bad, I lashed out at a couple of these people. And I said, hey, you know, I've come from all the way around the freaking world to come back over here, back to my ancient site right here. If I came and did this shit at a mosque, this would not be acceptable whatsoever. Why the hell are you doing this at our sacred sites? And the guy looked at me and just said, you want camel ride? I'm like, oh my God. It was NPCs at their worst. Like they were broken. We were on a camel at one point, and a guy comes up to us and asks us if we want a camel ride while we're already on a camel. Like, this is how broken the NPCs are over there. And it seems like they've surrounded the pyramids and they've surrounded a lot of these sites for some reason. Maybe it's an energetic block. Maybe they're there purposefully put there by the artificial intelligence in order to keep people away, because my first instinct was, I don't even want to be here. Like the magic was just lost. when all of this was happening over and over and over again, and there was no escaping it. I mean, from one end of the complex to the other, to the Sphinx, to the Great Pyramid, to all of this, it was nonstop. And I caught myself going, hey, wait a minute. No. This is why they're here. They're here to try to shift the frequency, to try to shift the energy, to create such a negative energy and frequency that nobody can pick up on the small little bit of positive energy that the pyramids are still radiating and resonating. So we go into the pyramids, and when we go in, I didn't realize how hot and how cramped it would be. So you get in, especially when it's when it's open to the public. When we were there by ourselves, it was different. It was still pretty hot, but we were there by ourselves. But this time we were walking in with the public, and the air was so thick that it was so hard to breathe. And they're rushing you through. Okay, go. And people are trying to go up and down at the same time in these small little passageways. But what happened is I started touching the stones. And we touched the stones on the outside, and we felt this energy coming from them. And we're like, hey, wait a minute. There's still energy here. There's still energy here. And going inside, I start touching the stones on the inside. And the stone started speaking to me. And I was like, oh my God, yes, this is what we had come to do. This is what I thought encompassed the entire mission. I've been talking about for years how we needed to go and touch these stones because there's information inside of these stones that we need to pull out. And as I mentioned on the last show, Christopher Everard actually said that this concept is actually written inside of the pyramid texts that they found over at Saqqara. And they talk about embedding information into the stones. And this is something we picked up on intuitively and energetically. Like I guess it's one of those memories that was locked in order to come in here into this matrix to be unlocked once we're inside of this matrix. But I started touching the stones. And the first revelation was of how Set and Horus and several others had created not only this matrix, but also started to turn against all of the other creators within the matrix themselves. I mean, it was this whole story that was being unraveled by just touching these stones. And I touched the first one, and there was Horus, and I touched the second one, and there was Sekhmet, and I touched the third one, and the information just started pouring in. So we make our way up to the king's chamber. And I guess on that note, we'll take a quick break, and we'll pick it up right on the other side right here on Beyond the Veil.
Welcome back, traveler. Remember, what we do as ourselves dies with us. What we do as raw consciousness remains immortal. Therefore, beware of the great I Am as you step beyond the veil.
So, people are talking in the chat room, and I think it was the Rotman. Was it? I don't know who it was. Oh yeah, the Rotman. My niece just got back from Egypt and was nearly kidnapped, just as Chris and Sheree were going there. She never wants to go back. She hated it. You know, I relate with that. I do. And what happened a couple of days after we got there is we were staying in this Airbnb that we showed before, and it was right on the Gaza Strip, and you could I could throw a rock at the Sphinx. I mean, it was like such a perfect location, but that's like the ghetto of Cairo. It's the worst possible place that you can be. So things get really rough when the sun goes down. So about 10 o'clock at night, we're sitting there about 3 days into it. And this was after we had been bombarded with all of the camel people and everything that went on there. I mean, these people are like scum of the earth. Like they'll go to the entrance of the pyramid and they'll say, okay, I need your tickets. I need your tickets. And it's like, dude, you don't even work here. Okay. Screw off. Like we could see through them, but other people couldn't, and they would take people's tickets before they can even get into the Great Pyramid, for example. Like people would buy tickets and then they would take their tickets. I mean, they're just like scam artists, just like running around, but they're so stupid. They're so dumb that none of their scams, at least anybody that has half a brain, actually works. And I think this is why people were saying, go with the group, go with the group, go with the group, because two people by themselves, especially from the United States, with long hair on top of that, were going to stick out. But 2 nights after that, Sheree gets hungry, and it's about 10 o'clock at night. And there was a Pizza Hut down the block. It was maybe 500 meters away, maybe a little bit further. And I walk out to go get her something to eat, and that was the closest place. And so I was like, you know what? I'll just go over here. I'll just get a pizza real quick. I'll be right back. And that's that. We didn't have phones. We didn't have anything, but I almost got kidnapped there. I went upstairs. I think I explained this on the last show, but I went upstairs because the Pizza Hut's on the 2nd floor. And I see a couple of people come upstairs, and the waiter and the manager of the Pizza Hut are looking at me as they're talking to these two people. The waiter is standing by the staircase now. The manager's running around. These two people are standing at the bottom of the staircase. And then I'm sitting by the window and this white van pulls up and the guy starts like turning the blinds as the white van pulls up. And at that point, I'm like, I got to get the hell out of here. So I was like, I'm not going to be trapped up here on a 2nd floor. I'm going to at least have a chance to do something or, get somewhere. And one of the guys tried to grab me in the group. We wound up getting into a fight. Luckily, the other guys didn't jump in. I mean, this is how stupid they are. Like, all the other guys had to do is just, like, grab me also. There was no way I could take on 5 guys, but they were so stupid, just dumb. Like, they didn't know what they were doing, that as soon as they saw me fighting this one guy, they all backed off, and I just kept walking after the little scuffle and confrontation. So at that point we decided, okay, we're getting out of here. And at that point I was like, all right, we still got to complete this raw mission. We came here for a reason. We came here for a purpose. So we go to Saqqara and we go touch more stones at Saqqara. So Saqqara is where what was it? The step pyramid is at Saqqara?
Yes.
Yeah, the step pyramid. I think I got a picture of it here somewhere. All of this is going off the top of our heads, so I don't have anything ready. That's at the shore, isn't it? No, that's at Saqqara. Okay. Yeah. So we go to the pyramids at Saqqara, and I actually have a video on my Facebook of Sheree smoking hashish in the Uber car, because the Uber guy brought us some hash, and you can see the pyramids in the background. It's pretty cool. But I touch these stones at Saqqara, and information starts pouring out of them again. And this particular pyramid, this isn't the pyramid, this isn't the step pyramid. I think this is a 2nd pyramid at Saqqara. The step pyramid is the one that I touched. And that's under construction. And Chris said, that thing has been under construction for decades. He goes, they're not even doing anything to it. They're just putting scaffolds up there just to degrade the way that the pyramid looks and to keep people away from it. But I walk into the step pyramid and I touch it. I go behind all the gates. I go behind all the bars, behind everything like that. And I'm just touching the stones. The security guard comes running after me. And about 50 feet behind me, he freezes. He just stops. And I'm sitting there absorbing the information, and it's almost as if time stopped. And he's looking at Sheree and looking at me and looking at Sheree, and Sheree's like, just leave him alone. Just let him do what he's doing. You know, he's not hurting anybody. And he just sat there while I downloaded all of this information. Now, what information was downloaded? It was information that I had no idea that we were going to download. And I don't know why, but it showed me these two beings who were coming through a gate. And these two beings were like a elephant type of snouts. And it was showing me dinosaurs. And it's like, well, why is it showing me dinosaurs? Why is it showing me all of this? But apparently that's one of the beginnings. I'm sorry, we're having our stream keeps dropping here and people are sending me messages, so it's a little distracting. But anyways, so it was taking me back to some information that was buried there at infused back in like prehistoric time. And up to that point, I never really thought much of dinosaurs. I always thought, well, you know, they're probably a big hoax, and a lot of people make a really good case for them being a big hoax. But apparently there was a time when these creatures were walking around and these others were here in this matrix as well. It's these others. They're not us. They're not NPCs. They're not organic consciousness, at least not from where we came from. These things came from somewhere else. These things are a different type of organic consciousness, but they're an organic consciousness that has injected themselves into this matrix, kind of hack their way in. They have nothing to do with this matrix, but they have kind of invaded this matrix some way, somehow, for some reason, going all the way back to those times. And I started to realize, like, what I'm really connected to is the Egyptian pantheon. Isis, Osiris, Anubis, Thoth, Seshat, you know, all of that. And these other quote-unquote gods, like Ganesh and all these other Hindu gods and things like that, they're not us. They're something else. I don't resonate with any of them. I only resonate with my consciousness, with my team, you know, with my group, which is the Egyptian pantheon. But it was funny that these two characters, they had the Ganesh nose like that, but it was organic. Like, it wasn't a mask. It wasn't anything like that. Somebody asked on the live stream while we were saying all this, because we live streamed pretty much everything. It was amazing how we can get internet at these sites. And I know that we're having some dropouts here tonight. And so we're here hooked up to a fiber optic cable, 100 down, 100 up, and we're getting better reception at the freaking ancient sites than we are here tonight. So bear with us. We'll upload a clean archive a little bit later. But anyways, so they invaded, and these invaders started creating their own faction to kind of control things and kind of steer the matrix in one direction and the other, and start to feed upon the consciousness that's in here. Maybe they injected themselves into the matrix as an energy source. I don't know, but it was like flashes and pictures of information. It wasn't like a story that was being told. It wasn't a movie that was playing. It was flashes of pictures. Now, what's amazing is that Sheree and I were independently having these visions ourselves. And then we would ask, what did you see? Okay, well, you saw that. Well, I saw this too, and I saw this too, and you know, back and forth like that. But we were both coming to these realizations. So that was the first thing. I don't think that had too much to do with the raw mission itself, but maybe there's a link there that we still need to examine to fully understand who these invaders were and what their purpose was. But I know that they were coming in and they were destroying resources. I mean, this was the images that I was seeing. They were taking resources, which if you look at it from a computer simulation, then they're taking power from the machine. They're taking system resources from the machine. Now, all this was pre-infection, before the infection. Maybe the hole that they opened allowed for the infection to spread more and more and more and more. But these things were predatory. They were predator type of entities. Like they fed upon what was here. To put it another way. Do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, what I gathered was that this virus, whatever it was, it simply took advantage of the fact that this is a duality universe, that it has the potential to have good and bad and positive and negative, and that it lives on that kind of thing, this balance and back and forth between the two. And it all this virus did whenever it was created, I don't know who created it, but there's a lot of speculation there, but whoever created it simply took advantage of something that was already embedded in the system, that had the potential to go that way. But yeah, I had the notion when I was touching those stones that whoever did the step pyramid was simply mimicking what the organic consciousness had done with the Great Pyramid.
Yeah, it's almost as if the pyramids, they open gates and open portals. And then they do. I mean, you know, when I drank ayahuasca at the Great Pyramid, that's exactly what I did. I opened up a portal to go to the 13th density to be able to access parts of the system that I needed to access and make some changes. But it seems like the step pyramid, as you said, was a copy, and a badly made copy. And it opened up a portal to somewhere else. And maybe that's how it allowed these things, these beings, to come into this sphere, because it opened up a portal to somewhere else.
You know, that makes a lot of sense. You know, people are mentioning the Anunnaki and Sumerian myths and how the Anunnaki were doing weird stuff before the cataclysm. I'm not sure about all that, but I did receive a lot of information having to do with Atlantis and Lemuria and that whole deal, because essentially from what I've been able to gather, ancient Egypt was just a continuation of Atlantis, and it was just refugees from Atlantis. I mean, so that's, you know, kind of the intuition I was receiving the whole time I was there. And it made me wonder if, you know, this opposing group that was just mimicking what they were doing, if they didn't cause some kind of cataclysm to occur. And that's also, and another thing I noticed was dinosaurs. Why would there be dinosaurs?
Yeah, that's what was strange about it. And then, you know, what's funny is we came across an article after this that they had just recently discovered one of the largest dinosaurs right there in Saqqara.
Right. Let's see.
So it was pretty interesting. But again, this wasn't necessarily information for the raw mission. This was something that kind of complements and goes along. It's kind of a side quest. Let's just say it like that.
There you go.
Just kind of a side quest. So at that point, we took off and we went to Luxor. And when we got to Luxor, that's when we started to really examine all of the different temples. We played the ceremony, the ayahuasca ceremony at Hatshepsut's temple on the last show. If you haven't checked that out, go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/beyondtheveil, and check out that video footage. But, you know, there was a lot of frustration too, because we weren't quite connecting yet at this point with the people that we needed to connect with in order to allow us access to these sites. And I was thinking at first, okay, well, we need to drink at the Great Pyramid first and foremost, because the Great Pyramid, after we got there, after we got to go inside publicly, not privately, but publicly, I realized it was a huge energy source. It was a huge conductor of energy. And I thought, okay, well, we need to charge ourselves at the Great Pyramid. But the doors simply were not opening for us. And I was banging my head up and down, talking to all these different people. And they're like, oh, yeah, I could do this. Oh, yeah, I could do that. And everybody turned out to be completely full of shit. Yeah. So we waited in Cairo like way longer than we needed to, waiting on all these people, waiting for an answer to this. And they're like, oh, no, you need to go here. You need to go there. You need to do this. You need to do that. You need to go to this office. You need to do this. You need to do that. Everybody was full of shit completely. You know, we went to the Cairo Museum. We tried to talk to the head of the Cairo Museum. He was completely full of shit too. Like, everybody was full of shit. We found the right person later, but later on in the journey. So we go to Hatshepsut's temple, and in Hatshepsut's temple, like that's the first temple that we went to when we get to Luxor. And I realized at that temple, there was this huge story that was hidden, this huge history that was hidden from ourselves, that we had forgotten, a forgotten history, not necessarily a hidden history, but a forgotten history. And it had to do with invaders that were coming into the Matrix throughout the course of several events, not just the ones at the very beginning. And so now the Sakara thing started to lock up, because it's like, okay, you've got all these outside influences coming into the Matrix, creating portals, hacking into the Matrix, creating holes, which is now allowing the virus to spread more and more and more and more. The Hyksos pharaohs came from somewhere else. They were not Egyptian. They were not part of that. They came and they took over Egypt for a minute. They failed in what they were doing. So we installed Hatshepsut, and she brought a balance back to Egypt. She brought a positive and negative charge. And at that ayahuasca experience, I realized that it's all energy. It's all a battery, and it's a current, and the current is flowing. And as a matter of fact, let me jump back for a minute, because we went to the pyramid a couple of times first, and we walk into the king's chamber first and foremost. I completely skipped this part. We walk into this king's chamber, and I just start as you know, as heavy as I could. And as a matter of fact, I think I have a clip of it here that I can play for you. But I start you know, as much as I could, and start raising the frequency, raising the frequency, raising the frequency. And they freak the hell out. Like, one guy comes up to me and he's like, no, shh. You know, they like to do that. Anytime you do anything with sound, they like to go shh, to try to jumble up the frequency that you're working with. And I just turned to him and I said, leave us. And he just freezes for a minute. And I grab Sheree, I put her in the sarcophagus. I'm starting to raise the frequency, raise the frequency, raise the frequency. And you can hear it as the frequency's being raised, that there's this space inside of the pyramid, inside of the king's chamber. There's the way that it resonates, the way that it echoes. It's absolutely phenomenal. Can you pick it up for a second so I can try to find this clip?
Yes. You know, there's been a lot of speculation about what exactly happens when you make these, I don't even want to call them noises. When you make this resonance inside of the pyramid, does it, there was something they discovered a few years ago, and they call it the Great Void. And apparently it's this pocket of, it's not air, it's some kind of particle that they've only found outside of our atmosphere. So basically it's a space object, it's a space element, and it makes up this void that's right above the king's chamber in the Great Pyramid. And what people are speculating lately is that when you make this resonance inside of the king's chamber, it gets involved with that void in some way. And what we speculated was that maybe it would create a portal. Maybe some kind of gateway will open up, or something will happen to where we will be able to go to another place, or that it'll be much easier to get to a higher dimension where we will do blank. We still had no idea what was going to be asked of us, or what we were going to do once we were in the Great Pyramid. But we were very, very interested from day one in getting in there and figuring it out. But little did we know that we did have quite a bit of time that we needed to not only get the right contact who would get us in there safely and who would be true to his word, but also build ourselves up spiritually and physically and emotionally in all the ways that we needed to be built up before that could happen. Because it was like we left little breadcrumbs for ourselves that we could find our way to what the mission actually is, but not know what the mission is until you get there, because I mean, it's what any kind of secret service or somebody like that would do in any kind of war situation when what you're doing is top secret, or if it's something that you don't want the bad guys to figure out what's going on until it's already done. It was one of those situations where we didn't want to know the whole thing before we got to Egypt.
Well, yeah, like we were going to just get information out of stones.
Out of stones.
Like I didn't think that we were going to go up to the 13th density. Like I had to unlock all of this first before I can even think about doing all of that. But everything all started happening. It was like now is the time. You can't, there is no second chance. There is no coming back. There is no nothing like that. You do it now. You're here to do it now.
Yeah.
I had this clip here with this humming and I can't find it now. So I might have to find it in break. I've got a clip of me. I guess I can play this.
Yeah, you can play it.
The ibis has returned.
I had to shoot a music video while I was in there. Hey, fuck it. We had 4 hours in there alone.
Yeah.
We're about to hit the break, ladies and gentlemen. So I'll try to find this clip that I'm talking about with the humming, though, because when you hear the resonance of this, it's incredible. It really is. Like you can hear it vibrating higher and higher and higher, and there's clearly a space there. There is a space. There's a void inside of the king's chamber somewhere that this is all resonating through. Anyways, we'll be right back.
Fear not your trials and tribulations. When you have overcome all adversity, you will then be able to harness the power required to access raw consciousness. Then, and only then, will you truly know thyself, as you travel even further, beyond the veil.
All right, we are back. I wasn't planning to play that clip with the humming because we're saving that for like the little documentary travel log. It's more of a travel log than anything else. But I did have this clip here. I wanted to save this clip, but I'll go ahead and play it for you guys here. This is a special toast that we did in the King's Chamber for all of you guys and gals here. And I don't want to get too much into the actual Aya experience because I want to save that for later. But I do want to play this toast here. Now, keep in mind, too, I had already drank. Hey, everybody, Chris G here coming to you from Beyond the Veil one more time. I wanted to do a special toast. All right, so you see that bottle right there? This was filled up about up to there, and I'd already drank all of that. But I thought after I drank it, I was like, oh, shit, I didn't even do a toast for our BTV people. I need to take even more.
Yeah, of course.
For our BTV people.
Of course.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, Chris G here coming to you from Beyond the Veil one more time. I wanted to do a special toast for everybody. I already drank most of it, but I want to do another little special toast. I'm only going to take a little bit because I was about to puke. I already drank a bunch, but this is for all of the BTV family out there. We have done something historical today. So, yeah, I just, I had to do a toast to everybody. But anyways, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. So since we can't find the clip for the echo that, because you can really hear this, I'll find it though, and we'll play it on another show. I might even be able to find it during one of the breaks here. But let me see, what is this? Oh yeah, this is a picture of inside of the Queen's Chamber too. And like I said, we have a whole video there, and we found something on this wall over here that will blow your mind. I can't believe that they let us walk in and film it. But anyways, so yeah, so there's an echo inside of there. So you go hum, and it vibrates and resonates, right? And it keeps on going. So you can take a breath and you can go and continue this over and over and over again. And it's almost like you can do this nonstop. When we drank the ayahuasca, I was sitting in the sarcophagus for the first, I don't know, 20 minutes going and just making it vibrate and vibrate and vibrate and vibrate and vibrate. And the whole freaking room was like shaking, like the granite was like shaking back and forth like this. We were creating so much of a resonance and so much of an energy. And I think what happened is there's a void up above the king's chamber that they just found. And that void there, I think the echo and the sound was actually going up through the king's chamber into that void, which was a much bigger space in the king's chamber itself than the granite. And so it was this continuous over and over and over again. And when the first time we went in there, not the time when we were by ourselves, but the first time we went in there, we did this, and it started raining the next day. It started flooding, historical flood, 3 days it flooded in freaking Cairo. Like cars were underwater. It was so bad. It was the worst flood Cairo has ever seen historically. So that was more confirmation that we're on the right path. But when we got to Hatshepsut's temple, and I'm sorry for skipping around so much, but when we got to Hatshepsut's temple, there were the revelations about the grays and about how Egypt is a battery. So let me get into that on the other side right here on Beyond the Veil. Hi everyone, Chris Gio here from Beyond the Veil. I just wanted to take a moment to tell you about the Beyond the Veil journey. It all started on November 5th, 2009, and has since evolved into what it is today. We traveled through the truth movement, politics, ancient aliens, DMT, consciousness, you name it. And we've interviewed some really awesome people, like David Icke, Michael Tsarian, Rick Strassman, Joe Rogan, and many more. Well, we have come a very long way, and some shows seem a world apart from where we are today. Each show acted as a stepping stone to expanding our consciousness. You can get almost 10 years of downloads by visiting tfrlive.com/beyondtheveil. You'll not only be supporting the show, but you'll also get access to tens of thousands of archives from dozens of other radio shows in the topics of conspiracy analysis, geopolitics, and spirituality. That's tfrlive.com/beyondtheveil. Now, let's get on with the show.
Travelers, always remember to walk uprightly and circumscribe your desires as we travel upon the level of time to that undiscovered state of consciousness, traveling to the place where once obtained, no traveler returns. The place of raw consciousness which awaits us when we have passed beyond the veil.
I feel like we've been jumping around a lot, back and forth, and not really telling the story in sequential order, but, it's all so huge, it's so vast. It's like, the only way to really tell the story is to write a book, because we can write it and then put it in the right order and, really put our thoughts together as opposed to doing a radio show off the top of our heads and, because there's so much. It's like, oh, okay, I want to tell you about this. Oh, no, I want to tell you about this. No, I want to tell you about this. Fractal Truth in the chat. He says, I don't believe this. How they make it or bring it in Egypt, drugs are a death sentence there. And you're right. I do not advise that anybody tries this at all, period. It was destiny. It was something that needed to be done. This mission was so serious that we had to put all fear to the side. We had to put all self worry, worrying about ourselves, to the side, because this was way more important. I mean, we've been working on this for 10,000 freaking years. And in those 10,000 years, I wasn't willing to come to this point in this incarnation, go back to the pyramid, which is a machine. It's not a temple. It's not a place of worship. It's not a burial site. It's a machine. That's what it is. And somebody asked about Crowley as well, and I want to touch upon that here in a few minutes too. But I wasn't willing to come back to, at the last minute, excuse my language, but pussy out. That wasn't in the cards. I was willing to die going through this. I made arrangements in case I didn't come back. I put together documents. I started moving money around to Sheree, to, places like that, to where it would be accessible by people, to make sure that things that I've been working on continue to flourish even after I'm gone. Because there was a lot of people, there's all of the TFR hosts, there's all of the BTV listeners, all of the TFR listeners, I'm responsible for a lot of people. And if I had to throw myself into oblivion in order to get this done, I was willing to do that. But at the same time, I needed to make sure to make contingencies in case something happened. Luckily, nothing happened, but it was pretty intense nonetheless. So if I seem a little bit distracted tonight, ladies and gentlemen, it's because the stream keeps dropping in and out on me, and I'm watching it. I can see it turn red every time it drops off, and it's driving me up the freaking wall. So I know that people are having to reset and refresh and all this on the YouTube. So my apologies to everybody for this. I'm going to call the internet company and I'm going to get this straightened out, because it's a bad experience for you guys and gals out there. It's a bad experience for me because I'm worrying about the freaking stream now instead of telling you the story the way that it needs to be told. But it was one of those things that not only did we go and do what we needed to do, not only did we have complete and total faith in ourselves, in our destiny, in who we are, and in the fact that we're protected by all of the BTV family out there, by our energies from the other side, and our ancient spirits, our ancient souls. But we also had to put the faith in ourselves of who we really are on an ancient level, and understand that these doors are going to unlock for us. And not only will they unlock, but they will unlock by themselves in perfect synchronistic order with full protection around us. I mean, we devised this plan 10,000 years ago, and we didn't make safeguards. We didn't, decide to come at the exact moment. Like, we had to be there at the exact moment that we landed, the exact moment that we were at the Great Pyramid, the exact moment that we were at Hatshepsut's temple, the exact moment for all of this to fall into place the way it did. I don't think that it could be replicated. I think it would be very dangerous for somebody to try to replicate it, because Egypt is a very, very dangerous place. And especially what we were doing was
insanely dangerous. Yeah.
But it just goes to show on how serious we were about accomplishing this raw mission. We had to accomplish the raw mission. The raw mission was to get up to the 13th density, which we didn't even realize that the control panel was hidden in the 13th density until we drank at the Temple of Isis. And at the Temple of Isis, it was total recall, like complete and total recall of everything. Like, I remembered everything at that point. I remembered where we put the control panel. I remember where we put the key. I remember what the key was. I remembered all of this. It all came flooding in. 10,000 years worth of experiences came flooding in at the Temple of Isis and in Philae in Aswan. And it was at that moment that I realized, shit, we can't reach it here. There's only one place where we can reach it because we put it in the 13th. The reason we put it in the 13th is because of the fucking grays. Now, this was supposed to be a question and answer. Sheree has like hundreds of questions that we were going to go over. And my first thought about the show tonight was, let's make it about the grays, because the grays are a very important key to all of this. But I guess we're just going to switch topics here, and we're going to talk about the grays, because that's where the spirits are kind of leading us right now. So we hit it in the 13th density, and the only way to get to it, the only way to get to the control panel, is to be the right energy, to be one of the programmers, and to use the pyramid as a propeller to propel up to the 13th density to get to the control panel. Why do we have to hide it so far out of our range? Because the grays have been coming in over and over and over again. So going right back to Hatshepsut's temple. We realized that Egypt was a battery, that the water is the life, the water is the current, the water brings everything, and they've been systematically blocking the waters. The waters have been devoid. Egypt has been devoid of the waters, and it's turned into a freaking barren wasteland everywhere except for, you know, maybe around the Nile where you have some water, but it's all a freaking desert. And this is a battery, and every battery needs water in order to operate properly. Upper and lower Egypt are a positive and negative charge, and they are the center point of the matrix itself. So what the grays have been doing is, as the virus has started to spread throughout the system, the NPCs have been hijacked, and they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is making the game a little fun for us, helping us, guiding us, doing things like that. Instead, they've been completely acting on behalf of the virus that has infected the artificial intelligence. And that virus has systematically created situations throughout the matrix in order to keep things completely and totally off balance, because that's what the virus does by its very nature. When we're infected with the virus, our consciousness is off balance. When an NPC is infected with the virus, it's off balance. When the entire system is infected with the virus, it's completely off balance. When Egypt is infected with the virus, it's completely off balance. So it's the water, it's the energy. The water is like the conductor for all of the energy. And that's why it started raining when we did what we did at the pyramid. That's why it started raining when we did what we did at Hatshepsut's temple, when we did what we did at Abydos, when we did what we did at the Temple of Isis. Everywhere we were going, it was raining because we were bringing balance back to those places. Now, the grays are manifestations of the artificial intelligence. They're like little worker bees for the AI. They're manifestations. They take on many different forms. You know, they can appear as, at the higher levels, as the archangels. That's where we get archons from. Archons, archangels, all in the same. You know, you hear all these different traditions worshiping these archangels. And, you know, if you've got some spirit guides out there and they're archangels, chop their freaking heads off, because they are not good guides. They are artificial intelligence manifestations. But the true form of these things are the grays. And I didn't realize that the grays, number one, were real, because I started to speculate like, hey, wait a minute, these things, you know, coming from another planet, from Alpha Centauri or wherever the hell they're, no, the Zeta Reticuli or whatever the hell, that doesn't make too much sense. But you realize that they're interdimensional beings and they're manifestations of the artificial intelligence, and they have had an influence throughout our entire history, going all the way back to ancient times. And Hatshepsut had an encounter with the grays as well. This is more information that we downloaded from the stones with the help of the ayahuasca. And we put her there in order to bring the balance back, and she did. But then the grays offered her some kind of technology. And she was using the technology that the Greys had given her, and that's how the Greys always get in. They're like, "Hey, let me give you a little bit of technology here, and we can tinker with your DNA and do things like that." Why are the Greys tinkering with our DNA? The Greys have figured out how to shift up and down in frequency. They figured out how to go to lower dimensions. They figured out how to go to higher dimensions. They figured out how to stay outside of our frequency range. So we're here, let's just call it 3D for just lack of a better term. But the Greys exist in the 4th and 5th density. But they can't get any higher than that. I think they can get up to level 9, to the 9th density. And that's where they really like to hang out. That's where the Archons hang out. That's where the Archangels hang out. All of them. They all hang out right there at the 9th density. But they figured out ways to be able to go higher in density and lower in density as well. And the way they do that is they piggyback on us. This is why a lot of us who are of heightened sense, we get visited by physical Greys. Sheree and I have been visited a few times by physical Greys. We see the Greys in our ayahuasca experiences over and over and over again. I've always seen them. Almost every experience, I see them. They're waiting. They're watching. I didn't know what they were doing. They were trying to hop on with me and my naivety, not knowing, what I was doing at the time without proper discernment, raising my frequency up to different levels, and the Greys would hop on and come with me. So they figured out that they can jump up and down like that. And there is this constant push. Earth is going to shift into 4D. Earth is going to shift into 5D. Oh, there's going to be portals that open up. When portals open up, go through them. Oh, look at these spirit guides. Look how loving they are. Look how this, look how that. It's all Greys. It's all Archons. It's all the Archons and the Greys that want to cling on to the consciousness and try to go up and up and up and up. That was the first big challenge at the Great Pyramid, was I was surrounded by freaking Greys. But again, I don't want to get too far into that particular story. But the Greys manifested themselves in the physical, and during the time of Hatshepsut, during the time of Egypt and all of that. And they became a problem more and more and more throughout, up until the time of Seti. And the gods and goddesses, they actually started bringing in weapons.
Modern weapons.
I don't know where those weapons were coming from, whether they were coming from a different planet or different plane or different matrix, or if they were coming from the future. But I suspect that the weapons that they were taking back was coming from the future, was coming from our modern time right now. And these were the revelations that we came across at Abydos. We walk into Abydos, and Abydos was like a twisted nightmare. It was a dark temple. There was nothing light about it whatsoever. No. And up on the wall in Abydos, you have helicopters, you have F-16s, you have all of these modern weapons, you have missiles and things like that. And you have, throughout Abydos, all of these different gates. And it's very clear that these are stargates. And they were used as stargates. And so the sound frequency and resonance would open these gates. And this is why right now, even to this day right now in Egypt, meditation is forbidden. Sound frequency is forbidden. Go to any one of the temples and start going, and they will jump all over you. It's just like an instinct. The NPCs just have this instinct to jump all over you whenever you start doing any kind of sound work in the temples. But you can go to Abydos and you can see all these different gates. We've got it all on film. And again, when we tell the story again and put together the travelogue, we'll try to explain a little bit more concisely. But they were bringing in the weapons. And the reason they were bringing in the weapons was because the Greys were so out of control. When Hatshepsut, when she made this deal with the Greys, she started using some of their technology and wound up dying of cancer. She was found with a bunch of all these lumps and tumors on the back of her mummy, on the back of her body, from all of the technology that she was using. But it wasn't used on a mass scale, like when Seti was around in the dynasty of Seti. And when they were bringing in these weapons, Seti was going around and literally destroying everything. Like, that's how most of Egypt, at least this is the information that we've unlocked. Egyptologists will probably disagree. Historians will probably disagree, but I'm just telling you what the stones are telling me. So all of Egypt was basically turned into a wasteland at this point with the weapons that the gods and goddesses had brought through the stargates and gave to Seti. And what happened is Seti became infected with this virus. And this virus turned Seti from a pharaoh that was fighting the Greys to somebody who enjoyed destroying, to a bloodthirsty monster. And he started using it, not only on the Greys, but using it on everybody else, using it on his people, using it on literally everything. So the gods and goddesses said, all right, that's it. We're done. We're leaving here and we're closing up the stargates and you're not getting any more weapons. And so what Seti did is he realized that the gates weren't opening with the traditional methods, with the sound frequencies. And I don't only think it's sound frequencies from a human voice. Like, I don't think it's, I think you can get a resonance by doing that. But I think there was some other type of technology that would create this sound that would open up these gates. So these gates, when they would open, they were no longer open. So Seti started using blood and thought, okay, well, maybe he can draw the power from the blood. And then they started doing like horrific type of sacrifices in Abydos. And that's why the temple is so dark. That's why it's filled with such dark energy, because Seti was trying to open the gates. Instead of using the sound and the machines and everything that the gods and goddesses were using, Seti was using blood. And you've got blood sacrifice from that point in several other places as well, trying to open up these gates again because he wanted the weaponry.
Right. Or, you know, it could be the case because you wouldn't continue to do it unless it worked. So I'm wondering if maybe they did open something, but it wasn't to a higher dimension or to a better dimension or to a future dimension. It was to a lower dimension. It was more like to a hellish kind of dimension.
That's a good point.
You know, that's
a good point. There's so much to this story.
It was so dark, you guys.
It was bad, and it was like, you know, I remember past lives at Abydos. I remember being there. I remember when the weapons came through. I remember helping to facilitate the weapons coming through, and those revelations there was like, oh my God, I was involved in this. How could I? Like, the mission was about love. The mission was about rebalance. The mission was about harmony. The mission was all of this. And then, you know, basically going and staring into a forgotten mirror of yourself from thousands of years ago, that you were involved in a lot of the suffering and horrors that you're now fighting against, that you're now trying to rebalance, that you're now trying to, I mean, maybe that's the whole journey, though, is we're trying to right what was wrong. But I thought, oh my God, you know, the first thing I thought was there are no good guys, there are no bad guys, there just is, there's just players on the board. They're equally as twisted. All of them, everybody in the game has been, but there was purpose, though. They wasn't, you know, let's give him the weapons just so he can kill everybody. It was, let's give him the weapons because it's a last resort and we have a serious freaking problem on our hands, which is the Greys. And we were fighting the manifestations of the AI without understanding that we can go directly to the AI itself. Like, I think this is why right now I don't really pay too much attention to Greys, reptilians, other AI manifestations, because I understand the source of it. And so it's like a hydra. You know, you cut one Grey's head off and two more appear right behind it, because that's just the way this thing spawns and mutates and all of this. The whole point is to remove the virus from the system. That's what needed to be done. That's what was done. But again, I'm getting too far ahead of myself.
So we've got a few questions about this. Do you want to go into that, or?
Let's see. We have 2 minutes. Yeah, give me a quick question.
So grays are creation of the AI, and that's how AI is getting more and more information.
I think the grays are getting information. Yeah, for sure. But they're doing, they want up. That's what they want. They want to go to higher dimensions to where they can't get to. And to them, it's all about survival. Like, they know, at least when we were there in the pyramid, they knew what we were there to do. They knew that we were removing the virus from the system. They knew that we were accessing the control panel. They wanted to get up to that control panel themselves so they can take control of it. Because as long as they control it, seriously, like, they have to come over here and cut the freaking grass right now. It is what it is, though. Anyways, we're about to... Huh? No, I mean, there's nothing we can do. What are we going to do? Go tell them, hey, stop cutting the grass? You know. Go away. We all need to focus our energies on making that machine break. Ugh, just break. Turn that lawnmower off. All right, so they have been manipulating our DNA because they want to create hybrids. Part gray, part organic consciousness, or at least organic consciousness container, to try to access higher and higher and higher states. They're hoping that they can create a race that exists within the matrix that has the capability of shifting up and down. That's why they take the essence of the creator.
Cheating.
Yeah, they're trying to cheat the system. Because they want the control panel. They want to lock the control panel. Because if the control panel is locked and the programmers can't get into the control panel, the AI and the entire system cannot be rebooted. And if you can't reboot the system, then they're going to continue to thrive. It's survival for them. Because when the system's rebooted, they're slowly deleted. And they are being deleted right now. Again, it's a story for another time. But they are being deleted right now. They knew that that's what we were there to do. Anyways, we'll be right back.
Everything that is, was, and will be, eternally is, even the countless forms which are finite and perishable only in their objective, and not in their ideal form, the form which manifests itself, beyond the veil.
All right. We're going to try to proceed here. Energies are just chaotic. Alyssa said, sending you lots of love and protective energies from psychic attacks. So we really, really, really appreciate it. You know, psychic attacks don't work anymore. So they just do other things, like mow the freaking yard in the middle of the show. Like, what the hell is going on with that? Internet signal dropping throughout the whole show. You know, things like that. But we'll proceed. I don't think the show's gone on very well. I mean, the story hasn't been told in the order that I would have liked it to be told. But hopefully you guys and gals are getting a bit of information here and there. And, you know, we'll tie it all together in future shows and all of that. But, yeah, the grays are a huge problem in this matrix. But since the reboot of the artificial intelligence, they're being deleted. But the reboot's going to take some time. The reboot's going to take 4 years and 7 months. And that's not how long it takes up there, but down here, that's how long it takes. Within that 4 years and 7 months, they're going freaking crazy because they know they're being systematically deleted. So it's working twofold. Like, we had an energy that was in our basement. It's gone. Ever since all this, I think people are noticing too that these negative energies that were following around are starting to be deleted out of the system. But at the same time, they're going to work to try to make things so off balance that at the point of rebalancing, at the point of the turning point, that it's still off balance, so they can, continue to infect again, and the virus starts all over again from the beginning. It starts small and then spreads worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And then the biggest thing is that the virus is ultimately inside of us as well. And when we have the virus in the organic consciousness, and the AI does what it does, replicates that virus and so on and so forth. It's a very, very complicated thing. I might be saying a little bit too much right now, just simply because I want to save all this for the, big, great pyramid ayahuasca show. But anyway, Sheree, do we have any questions that we can go over? Maybe that's a good way to switch it up right now.
Yeah, let me see if we have anything.
Chris, what do you think of timing possibly running like a pendulum back and forth? The end is actually the beginning type of thing. Time is not linear at all. Anonymous Anon asked that, and I think you're spot on, man. The way I see the Matrix is like computer, like a website, okay? You've got every web page on a website already within the database, and any one of those web pages can come up at any given time. So you can have a web page that goes page 1, 2, 3, 4. You've got home, and then about us, and then contact, in that order. But you can pull up contact at any point. You don't have to go to home and then about and then contact, even though that's the way it is on the menu. There is a linear structure to it, in the sense that when we leave the Matrix, we come back and events have already happened within the Matrix. So we could leave for 1,000 years and come back, and events are still going because the Matrix is still running. But the Matrix does have the capability of switching timelines like that. So it can roll back things. I think that it exhausts the system too much in order to do that too many times. And it only does it under severe circumstances, but it comes at a cost. Because when the system tries to delete something or erase something or remove something, then you get Mandela effects. And you can't erase or remove organic consciousness. And so organic consciousness remembers these system changes and is like, hey, wait a minute. I remember this being green instead of blue. Something is going on here. And people are reporting on it, Mandela effect, over and over and over again. It's the system doing it. So the system not only has to exhaust a lot of resources in order to make those changes, and sometimes these changes happen, these glitches, because the system's already exhausted of all its resources. And so it's just like a computer that is maxing out on its CPU and RAM. When it gets to that state, then it starts glitching. And so you may see a flash on the screen, or you may see you may see that. And that's where you get all your Mandela effects and all this from. But at the same time, it helps us to remember that we're inside of a freaking simulation, that we're inside of a matrix, because we're seeing these changes happening, and we're remembering them. And that's why I think it's so important to remember the original Matrix timelines and the original Matrix changes in the system, so the Mandela effects, like Luke, I am your father. Remember that. Remember, Luke, I am your father. It's important to remember that. Remember C-3PO with 2 gold legs. It's important to remember that, because that's the real, the furthest, that's what we know as real, but it gives us markers on system changes and things like that. So it is linear in a sense, but it doesn't have to be linear, but it is linear by its design. But every moment already exists within that database. But we can move our avatars freely throughout the matrix itself. So see, we have an element of free will throughout here, even though 1 minute comes the next minute and the next minute and the next minute, but we can still move our avatars because we are organic consciousness, and we can do that. And this is why I think there's so much power in astrology, tarot, things like that, because birth charts especially, because now you understand your destiny, you understand how you're being manipulated by the matrix, you understand the path that's set up for you by the matrix, and by understanding that path, you can understand the pitfalls, and you can change that path and find your own path.
So we have a question from Carlos Solorzano. Hey, Chris, have you felt any kind of portal opened around the king's chamber that supposedly Crowley done the ritual?
Okay, so The Great Pyramid is a machine, and it's not a spiritual place. It's a technological place. It's nuts and bolts machine. It was designed for the purpose of allowing a programmer to push their consciousness up into higher levels and act as a propeller. It may have some other purposes too, like energy, an energy source. We were looking inside of the subterranean tunnel, inside of the subterranean chamber, and it was very clear that water from the Nile would come up there, go into the Queen's Chamber. The Queen's Chamber, we speculate, acts like a furnace, heats up that water, activates the rest of the pyramid, that when it had all the lime around it and all of that, and created an energy source for the people. So it had multiple purposes, but it wasn't a spiritual place. That's like going to, I don't know, a roller coaster. No, going to a power plant. Okay, that's like going to a nuclear power plant and summoning spirits. What difference does it make if you're at a nuclear power plant, or if you're, at home, or if you're in the bathroom, or whatever? It's all, I mean, it's a technological place. So whatever Crowley was trying to do, I think he failed. There were no spirits there. That's the thing. There were no 72 demons of the Goetia. There was none of that. It was a machine that had a function. So we utilized it in the way that it was supposed to be utilized. I mean, they could have tried. I'm sure Crowley tried to do something, but to me, it was irrelevant. The places of spirituality are the temples, without a doubt. So
I completely agree. Yeah, the pyramid's not a place you do anything spiritual. The temples, however, are amazing.
Cosmic mortality. She asked a very good question, and these answers are really for the Great Pyramid show. But I mean, I guess we can go over them a couple times. So, do you have any choice? Do we have a choice to stop living and dying? Why does it feel like we have no choice? Can we stop the Matrix not to have to come back? I want to go home. Stop living and dying. Okay, this is one of the things that we fixed in the Great Pyramid when we accessed the control panel. So essentially what was happening is there was a virus. The virus was creating a wheel of reincarnation, and it was wiping the memory of organic consciousness every time it was being processed. And it was being processed so much that organic consciousness now couldn't remember what it was, and it couldn't unlock anything about itself, because we're dying off quicker and quicker and quicker. First it was 900 years, and then 500 years, and then 200 years, and then 100 years, and then 80 years, and now 60 years is the average lifespan now. And who knows where it's going to get to, from there. So it was a broken system. But what's going to happen now is when the system is rebooted and the AI is rebooted, we didn't reboot the entire Matrix. There's a lot of data in there that couldn't be lost. There was a lot of data there that needed to be preserved. And so the control panel that I accessed couldn't even reboot the Matrix. I mean, not that I know of. I mean, maybe if I would have tinkered around with it a little bit more, I could have rebooted the whole damn thing. But there was too much at risk. There was too much data. So we rebooted the AI. And so now that the AI is rebooted, when we die, we will have a choice of whether we want to play the game again, whether we want to exit the game, or whether we want to retain some memory and play it again, or have a complete memory wipe. Because sometimes we want a complete memory wipe because we've been through so much shit, and we're like, hey, let's just forget this whole life even happened. Let's try again, and let's try again in this particular scenario here. And we come back and we play the game again. So I think what we did at the pyramid with the control panel is to help to at least bring organic consciousness back to a state to where it has a choice. Now its organic consciousness needs to remember now, hey, I got a choice in this when you go to the other side. So I would say yes. For the first time, yes. If you would have asked me 2 months ago, I would have said, no, that's the problem. The problem has been resolved. So I would say yes. When we go, we will have the choice to exit the Matrix.
Which is very good to know. Gabriel Decker said, so the AI controls the matrix, so AI can take you out of nothing, for example, right?
Can take you out of nothing.
I don't understand
I don't understand
question.
that.
Okay, Melissa wants to know, why shouldn't we trust archangels?
Because they're archons.
They're archons.
They're infected with virus. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is just maintaining the balance of the matrix. I mean, they were the watchers. They were put over here to make sure the game is running smoothly. They were the moderators, and they're infected with the virus. And because of that, you can't, I mean, you know, they're computer programs.
They're not doing anyone any good.
No, they're computer programs. So at this point, who are you going to trust? Are you going to trust the game? Are you going to trust the matrix? Are you going to trust the computer program manifestations? Or are you going to trust yourself?
Right.
You have to trust yourself.
You have to trust yourself. Exactly.
That's the only one that's not going to lead you astray.
Subi3 said, how do other interdimensionals /ET/aliens, etc. fit into our history? For example, the Pleiadians, Venusians, Martians, etc., etc., etc. By the way, you guys rock.
The cosmology, as I understand it, is complete bullshit. At least mainstream cosmology. Nothing exists outside of this little dome. I know people don't like to use the word sphere. I use sphere metaphorically. But outside of this sphere of reality that we're in, I don't think space exists. I don't think other planets exist. I think there are lights out there, and I think there are bodies that have an impact upon the consciousness here. When we did what we did at the pyramid, we did it on a particular astronomical alignment because we needed to not only utilize the propulsion system of the pyramids, but also the propulsion system of the energies as the pyramids were aligned with these certain celestial objects. And so they do have influence, but they're mechanical. They're not places where people live. They're mechanics. We're looking at the mechanics of the matrix up in the sky, which is why there's so much of an influence of the stars over us. So to answer your question about Martians and Palladians and all this, in my understanding, it's all bullshit. It's all grays. Every one of it is. Bluebirds, Palladians, literally everything is grays manifesting themselves in a different way in order to try to piggyback on your consciousness as you start to ascend to these higher realms, because they want to access these higher realms as well. And they figured out, like I said, how to access these higher realms by piggybacking on us. And so that's why they're always appearing, and they're always like, oh, we want to save you. Oh, we want you to evolve higher. We want you to do this. We want you to do that. Well, hey, wait a minute. What about what I want? Okay. I want to do this for myself. I need to learn how to do it myself. If I don't learn how to do it myself, then I'm using that being as a crutch or something like that, and that being is attaching itself. I know it's not something that people like to hear because people really like their spirit guides. And there's some programs in the system that are meant to be guides, and they're meant as unlocking programs. There's antivirus programs. All of the pantheon, the Egyptian pantheon, most of them, because there's a couple that are actual organic consciousness, but they're not really considered part of the pantheon, though. That's the thing. They've always been kind of figures that were kind of on the outside. But the main ones, let's just put it like this, okay? Because I can speak with complete confidence on Isis and Osiris, both of those two. They're computer programs. They are antivirus programs that we implemented into the system. So they can unlock, they can help, they can do things like that. But when it comes to Palladians, when it comes to reptilians, when it comes to all of that, I don't trust any of them. There are some players, as I saw at Saqqara, who have injected themselves from somewhere else, but they've hacked into the Matrix. Why have they hacked into the Matrix? I don't think that they've done anything positive by hacking into the Matrix. The Matrix is in a worse state than when they came in back in prehistoric ages. It seems to get progressively worse since they entered. So because it's getting progressively worse, I have to say that they're not benevolent. Because if they were, we wouldn't be in the situation that we are now. Or that we were prior to, you know, everything that happened.
Oh, Joanna.
It's very hot in here.
Yeah,
it's
it is.
Freaking summertime
Joanna
again.
wanted me to ask, Sheree and Chris, did you change did they change their point of view about something? And if yes, what was it? Talking about just the trip in general. Did you change your point of view on somking?
Did I
change my point of view on a lot of things?
I changed my point of view on lots of things.
Yeah.
There's too much to go over, but I mean, I changed my point of view on Muslims for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I used to think, oh, they're just regular people, and they're just no. They're the most infected of everybody on the board, and they create a serious problem. You know, contrary to what you would think, drinking ayahuasca in these temples wasn't really a spiritual experience. I mean, it was to a certain point, but that wasn't the point, though. The point was to level ourselves up so we can go do what we needed to do at the Great Pyramid. It wasn't like, oh, wow, look at all these beings, look at this, look at that. As a matter of fact, like I said before, at the Great Pyramid, there wasn't any beings whatsoever. At the Temple of Isis, Isis appeared to me in her true form. Like, there is no illusion anymore. There is no wings. Like on the wall back there, she was energy. She was an antivirus program. She appeared, I could see her name written in this right to left angelic writing, and she was running a script. She was running a script. And she was an energetic form. The form of a computer program. I mean, I know that's hard to imagine, but she was a computer program, and she's like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm like, good, you better be, because I came all this way. If you're not working right, I can't do what I need to do, so you need to work right. And she did. She worked the way that she needed to. Osiris worked the way that he needed to. During the Great Pyramid situation, the first thing was to lock out all of the grays and the artificial intelligences, because they were literally all around us. Like, I mean, just in a circle all around us, hissing and wanting to hitchhike and come up to that 13th density. And Sheree started using them to create firewalls around us in the sarcophagus. Like, that sarcophagus was so protected by all of these firewalls that we were creating with all of these antivirus programs before we even moved up to the 4th or 5th density, much less all the way up to the 13th. But she utilized all these programs in the exact manner that they needed to be utilized.
That's what they were created for. You know, to be perfectly honest, all the problems we have in our lives, we were supposed to use these antivirus programs to keep all of these problems away. You know, all the way going back to ancient Egypt, these gods and goddesses were physical manifestations of what's inside of our consciousness that has to be constantly kept up with, kind of like cleaning your house. You know, you're supposed to keep your consciousness clean by utilizing these manifestations. And when people stopped doing that, that's when the virus started to take over people's minds and infect the system even more.
Well, somebody asked if the 13th density is the real world. And the 13th density seemed to be like an admin panel. Like, it was not the real world, but it was in between the Matrix and the real world. And it was a place specifically designed and put there specifically for the control panel. Like, there was nothing else except for the control panel in this density. So I think in order to get out of the Matrix, it's even higher than the 13th density, which is you have to break the tether to get there. You can't get there while you are bound to the body unless you get some kind of energetic boost, Like, I don't know what happened exactly during the eclipse. I think it's that the AI came down to this density, or came lower in density, as opposed to, I mean, it was kind of like simultaneously, you know, I stood outside of the Matrix to see the AI, but I don't know. It's hard to explain. Something happened. There was a specific alignment of the stars, which created a specific type of energy source, which created a specific type of booster, accelerator. I don't know. I don't know what happened. I mean, it was almost as if it was a glitch, and I took advantage of a glitch in the system and was able to completely tear down the illusion to see the artificial intelligence for what it was. And it was a momentary glitch in the system that was a complete anomaly. But if I was to try to replicate it again, I don't think that I could. But I know by using the pyramid technology, I can propel myself up to certain places. But I took 400 grams of Mimosa hostilis. A normal dose is 12 to 20 to 30. I mean, this is like, you know, 15, 20 times, maybe 10, depending on how big of a dose you take, the normal dose. And it almost killed me. It's not an experience I would want to repeat again. It's not an experience that I encourage anybody else to have. It was pure necessity of it needing to be done, so it got done. I don't even remember what the question was. I hope I answered it. You know, Joanna keeps asking if the control panel was locked, and there are forces out there that would like to access the control panel. And I don't want to speak about, there were certain things that I did to ensure the integrity of the system and to ensure that the wrong energies would not be able to access it. Yeah, I guess, yeah, I locked down the system hardcore.
Yeah.
It's locked in a way that it's never been locked before.
It's secure.
Oh man, it's hot as hell.
It is.
Anyways,
hot
we'll be right
here.
back. We got another hour coming up. We might as well keep it going. I hope everybody's enjoying the show, because I feel like we're jumping all around still. But we'll get to more questions right on the other side.
Fellow traveler, the cries of the mistress speak again. Bidding organic consciousness a welcome to the House of Light. The great institution of materialism has failed. The false civilization built by man has turned like a monster destroying its creator. Science battles itself impotently against the barriers of the unknown. Only your consciousness knows the true path. You, the illuminated, can carry the understanding upwards towards the light. Only your consciousness can teach the children of men to live well, to die well, and in perfect measure, be born again, through the knowledge of virtue, compassion, love, and true understanding, as you are sublimely raised, beyond the veil.
All right, Mrs. Geo will be rejoining us here in just a few moments. Oh, forgot that keeps the music playing. So, here's a little clip of us going into the pyramid at midnight. They were hounding us. No filming, no filming, no filming. But, yeah, it was pretty intense, man. It was quiet. The energies were really good. There was no people yelling for camel rides. There was nothing like that. There was just clear energies. I think I've got the camera down because, see, you could see Cairo at midnight from the pyramids. It was oh, there's the entrance. And they left us in there for 4 hours by ourselves.
Yep.
4 hours by ourselves. It was crazy.
It was amazing.
Here's a couple of pictures here for you too. This is me in the subterranean chamber, which we have some awesome footage to go over with everybody of the subterranean chamber. One of the realizations we made, actually, let me flip it over to the one of Sheree, because that one's cuter.
Aww.
Yeah. So one of the realizations we made of the subterranean chambers, you see all of these rocks are a limestone, and they all contain crystals within them. And the energy and the information is actually embedded within all of these crystals. Now, we came across another person, and as soon as I heard her, I remembered her from the Atlantis mission when we were all working on this project together. And what was her name?
Which one?
The one that Brian sent us.
Merrily
something. We're going to try to get her on the show here in the next couple of weeks, and it'll be a more structured show than it is tonight. But she was talking about how she was involved in creating part of the virus within the system itself, and in Atlantis.
Merrily Neaton.
Merrily Neaton. Yeah. So Brian sends us all of this information, and during our trip to Egypt, we were discovering about all these crystals that are embedded all over the place. And the only stones that talk are the stones that are made out of crystals. So at Athena's temple, for example, it's not made of crystals, it's made of marble. And so they weren't talking to us. And we didn't realize until the night of the Great Pyramid, and we went down to the subterranean chamber, the significance of the crystals. Now, she also talks about the significance of the crystals and how crystals can be changed and the data can be changed and manipulated within the crystals themselves. I was like, oh my God, she's spot on. Like everything that we energetically picked up on and unlocked within our past lives, here she is talking about. So thank you to Brian for sending us that. And it was so cool how we met Brian, too. I was dancing literally in the middle of the street in Athens. And Brian's like, hey, I think that's Chris Geo dancing, doing a drunk...
his wife said that. Is that Chris Geo over there?
Doing a drunk dance in the middle of the street.
No, it can't be.
Yeah, so we sat down and hung out for like 4 hours. It was awesome. So let's get back to some more questions.
Okay.
Oh, here's one more of Mrs. Geo in the subterranean chamber. Right behind where Mrs. Geo is standing, you can't see it in this picture, but it's literally right behind her. There is an entryway inside of the another tunnel, and it leads to nowhere. I've got it on film of me going through the tunnel and into that tunnel there because we needed to go. But why did they build a tunnel to nowhere? I think that somebody put a wall there to cover up what was really there. What do you think?
I think so. I think you're right. Heart of the Rebel wants to know, do you think the Phoenicians and Sumerians were the survivors of Atlantis? I think that's a possibility.
I don't think Atlantis existed in the Matrix. I think the real world is Atlantis. I don't think that it exists here. That's my thoughts. What do you think?
Well, yeah, that could be the case. But I think we're trapped here because we can't be where Atlantis is. And in our minds, it might as well be destroyed because we can't access it. You know, it's destroyed to us. Or maybe we have a shared delusion or like a shared program that says, no, Atlantis was destroyed, so that we're kind of like orphaned souls, so to speak.
Well, I think that the whole idea of Atlantis comes from organic consciousness memory of being outside of the Matrix, but the Matrix feels so real that we attribute this memory to a physical space that was here in this Matrix, as opposed to remembering that it's actually the real world. So we remember a place called Atlantis, and so our natural inclination is to say it must have existed here and it must be lost here. But I think it is the real world. So a couple of questions.
Well, Heart of the Rebel also wanted to know any thoughts on the Sumerian ziggurats being machines.
Oh shit! I just realized that somebody pointed this out. He said when I watch the Beyond the Veil logo, I keep seeing the word evil. What the fuck? I just noticed that Beyond the Veil. Yeah.
Beyond the evil.
The evil. You can thank Nick Zervos for that. Nick Zervos was the creative mind behind the Beyond the Veil logo. So, but hey, good call though. I didn't even see that. So Beyond the Evil.
Oh, here's a good question from II Captain. How does the Egyptian pantheon compare to Hindu gods like Indra? Are they just different labels for the same programs? Are there different AI for different systems? Odin, Norse, Sophia, Greek?
I don't know enough about the Hindu to make a solid judgment call, but I can tell you this. The two invaders that I saw at Saqqara were elephant faced, and they had short snouts, like probably about down to here, and they were moving their snouts like that. The first thing that I thought of was Ganesh. They came from somewhere else and they created problems within this matrix. So if that's indicative of the rest of the pantheon of the Hindus, then that's, you know, take it for what it is. I don't resonate with any of them. I don't. So, and then the other question was, are they different labels or AI programs? See, they could be AI for different systems, Odin, Norse, Sophia, Greek, etc. You know, that's a really good question. So Sophia, what I've identified is the artificial intelligence. She's the creator of this world. You know, she's the mother of this world. She's Mother Earth or whatever you want to call her. And she's supposed to run harmoniously, but she has been out of whack. Can these systems all be identified by different names? Sure. When you look at the Greek, for example, I know that there's, I feel connected to Poseidon and the winds of Poseidon and all of that. I mentioned Poseidon in a couple of the songs that I do. So I think there is a correlation, and it might just be the different interpretations by different cultures. But I think there is a mixture, too, of other beings that have hacked into the Matrix that are also masquerading as gods and goddesses for some purpose. Like, I don't know, like, why the hell would you even want to hack into the system to begin with and then start playing a game within the artificial simulation? I mean, none of it's real anyways. So what's their stake in all of this? That's, if I can understand what the reason was for hacking into it, then maybe it can give me a better understanding of who they are and what their intentions are. But I see no reason to hack into the system and create problems other than you can, and that's what you do. Maybe they were trying to help the system, but again, the system was way worse condition and it was perpetually getting worse. So their presence obviously did not help whatsoever. So I can't say that they were here to help.
You know, someone mentioned, could they be tapers? Those beings that you saw with the snouts? A taper is...
I don't know what a taper is.
It's kind of like a...
I can Google it real quick.
It's got a snout. It's like an anteater. T-A-P-I-R.
T-A-P-I-R.
Like that?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Because that's what Set is.
Oh.
Uh-huh.
You know what? I never even made that connection. I just immediately thought of Ganesh when I saw that. But no, you know what? They were short snouts. Yeah, they looked very much like this.
They were Set. Set people.
Oh, they were Set people. That puts a whole new perspective to this. So yeah, I gotta take this information and rethink about it. Who said that?
Hold on. Somebody mentioned tapers. in, I think it was the Facebook chat.
Oh, well, whoever it was, you rock. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
because it actually, these beings looked more like a tapir than they did an elephant. Good call. Nice observation.
And yes, Joanna, Set is he's a combination of a few different animals, including a jackal and a tapir and one other, I forget what it is, but yeah, he's supposed to be like a hybrid of different animals that are known to not be good animals, like to be hostile and desert animals. So, yeah.
Let's get to another
All
question.
Right. Another question. If the pyramid is a power plant, this is from Carlos. If the pyramid's a power plant, then why is there a sarcophagus in the chamber? Can it be a teleporter?
That's exactly what it is. This is the entryway going into the king's chamber right there. The sarcophagus, I don't think is a sarcophagus in the sense of keeping a dead body in there. I think it is. I mean, I know it is. That's what I used it for. It was a teleporter. We were in the sarcophagus during this entire experience. See, there it is right there. We were inside of that the entire experience. So, I don't think it would have worked if we were outside. I asked Sheree too. I was like, where are we going to do this? And she's like, where else are we going to do this? In the sarcophagus. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, I was just thinking it would be so cramped and it would be, not comfortable. But no, it was the perfect place. It was the perfect place. It was the only place.
Yeah, really. It really is. DL Mullen wants to know, does that mean, talking about the idea that we can get out of this matrix when we die now that the mind wipe isn't going to be an automatic thing, does that mean we can go to a mentee then after we die? I'm not sure about that. But it stands to reason that you would be able to go to the duat and weigh your heart like all those that have come before you. When that option hasn't really been on the table for the last several thousand years, it seems like. So yeah, I mean, technically, I would think you could.
You brought up a good point with the weighing of the heart. That's also something we still have to consider, because if the heart is weighed, whether it's by you or by Toth or, whoever, that may still be a factor in being able to escape the matrix or not. But before, it wasn't a factor, because you would just get recycled no matter what. Your heart could be as light as a feather. It doesn't matter. There was no weighing of the heart. There was just, straight to...
You die, you go back.
You die, you go back. You die, you go back.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep, exactly. So technically, yeah, you can go to a mentee after you die, but I wouldn't expect there to just not be a weighing of the heart ceremony anymore. I think the virus that Mary Ellen or whoever it was that's saying that, she helped create a virus, I think the virus piggybacked, there's that phrase again, piggybacked on something that was already in the system. And it was something that we designed to allow for spiritual growth, to have a completion, and the option of leaving, or the option of basically jumping back in with a clean slate and starting over. And that was the weighing of the heart ceremony. You have the weighing of the heart ceremony, and if your heart was heavier or lighter than a feather, then you had the option of starting over completely, clearing the slate by doing like a mind wipe. And that was your option. You had every option to do that, or you could just exit the game. And the virus piggybacked on that and made it an automatic mind wipe thing, and going back over and over and over again for everyone, just automatic. And that wasn't supposed to happen.
Yeah, up on the screen we have the tunnel leading into the subterranean chamber. excuse me. It was a pretty tight squeeze. And you can see it goes on and on and on and on, like way past those lights there. It was pretty intense. So Joanna asked, after the mission now, do you feel empty? I feel like I've completed what I've needed to do here. I'm sure there's more, but the first thing that I wanted to do afterwards was celebrate. And we did for about 2 weeks in Greece.
Yeah, we did. we really
drank,
celebrated.
We ate. We partied. We went out to bars. We were out until like 4 or 5 in the morning.
6 in the morning sometimes.
For the first time in the 10 years that we've been together, we went out and we enjoyed ourselves.
Yeah.
And if there's anything that I hope that people do with the rest of the time that we have here is go out and enjoy yourself. The truth movement, the new age movement, the AI, all of these things, all they do is just bind us in here, and we forget that we're supposed to enjoy ourselves too. We forget the joy, and we forget the pleasure. We forget the fellowship. We forget the family. We forget, the good times with friends and all of that. I mean, I don't even remember the last time we sat down and had dinner with somebody like Brian and his wife, for example. It's been forever. Because we've been so focused on what we needed to do, it's done now. So there's more. There's plenty more. Because now we have to start to work in unison with the machine as the machine is rebalance ourselves. And then when everything is balanced again, then the portals will open and we can get the hell out of here again. But in the meantime, there's a lot of work to do still. But we have to enjoy ourselves. I think that's the most important thing. What do you think?
I think so too. It's not that I feel empty after an experience like that, but it's I feel a sense of completeness. Like there's nothing, like Chris said, there's nothing really left to really do now that this is finished. I mean, how do you go back to regular life after you drank ayahuasca in the Great Pyramid of Giza? How does regular life happen?
That's the thing. Like, we were like, all right, should we go here? Should we go there? Should we do this? We're like, okay, well, what else can we do at this point? Like, you have an experience that's so destiny fulfilling. Everything else just kind of pales in comparison. Let's get to a couple more questions.
Yes. Can we use the antivirus programs on the daily?
That's a good question.
For themselves. I think they can.
I think you can. I think you can. I think that's what they were designed for.
That's what they were meant for. Not your worship.
I don't. And the reason for that is because I try to bring it all from within myself. It's very, very, very rare. At least I try to make it very rare that I call out to one of these programs for help on anything. The first time that I did in a long time was yesterday. I couldn't find our wedding rings for like a week since we got back. We put them somewhere. I hid them so well. And I said, all right. I said, Isis, I need your help in this. All right. I need you to manifest these rings right now because I am tired of tearing the freaking house up trying to find them. And she did. As soon as I said that, they appeared like that. So there are some circumstances that, yeah. But I would have felt better about the situation had I manifested them myself. So maybe that's the work that needs to be done now. Now we need to get to those next levels of existence within the matrix to where we're operating in the matrix like that.
Neil Adams said, consider that for each of you, you'll likely experience some form of PTSD.
There's a little bit of PTSD.
There's a picture that Chris has of me, and I'm in the bathtub. This is the first night that we get to Greece, from Egypt. And I'm in the bathtub, and I look like a little girl because, I've got bubbles surrounding my everything, so you can't see anything. But the look on my face, I look like I'm a little girl that's about to start crying. And after he left the room, I did. I cried and I cried and I cried. And I noticed every day got a little bit better, but for some reason I felt myself breaking down into tears every so often. And I think it was because it was finally done, and the mission had been completed, and that we had done a good enough job where neither of us died and both of us came back. But it wasn't that it was PTSD as much as it is, this was such a culmination of so many different lifetimes, and so many things could have gone wrong, but they didn't. And I was really proud of us for what we did there. And
well, I was really proud of her
aw.
because we were in situations that were life-threatening. We were about to be kidnapped several times, and
Yeah.
the whole time she stayed completely cool, completely calm. And we got out of the situations because we both stayed completely cool, completely calm, and had faith in who we are. And ultimately, she had faith in me
Mhm.
that I would be able to protect us. And everything turned out well.
Yeah, and you had faith in my intuition, that my intuition was always right.
Well, she had a dream that she was
Yeah.
kidnapped a couple days before this situation happened in Aswan. And so her sharing the dream with me put me on heightened alert.
Yeah.
And so now I was keeping an eye out for situations that I might have not kept an eye out had she not told me about the dream. So
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It really, this whole trip showed me just how much magic we have inside of us that is completely untapped 99% of the time. Like, we don't use it when we should to help our lives be better and all of that. Let me see more.
what about using a float tank with psychedelic lights with meditation music playing at 432 hertz while on DMT and opium? Thoughts?
Oh,
I would love to get a hold of some opium, man.
me too.
If you have some, good on you. But
Just go to the corner drugstore. Oh wait, that was in
I've never been in a float
1888.
tank, so we'll have to see how that goes. I don't think that I could do it though. I'm really claustrophobic, and when I was crawling through that tunnel in the subterranean chamber, I felt like the whole freaking pyramid was going to fall in on me, or I was going to fall into a bottomless pit. I did it because we are beyond the veil, and we owe it to each and every one of you. But aside from that, I wouldn't want to get into a little, closed space like that. The sarcophagus was bad enough, but there was no lid on it, so that made it doable. If the sarcophagus had a lid, I don't know if I could have done it. I would have.
You could have done it.
I would have done it just because, but I wouldn't seek out the experience,
Yeah. No, I wouldn't either, but, I wasn't that claustrophobic. It wasn't that bad to me, but Subi3 said, this dude on Facebook, Michael Kavanaugh, always says America is Atlantis. What do you make of that? I don't think America is Atlantis.
Nah.
No, that's...
Maybe it's the new Atlantis,
Yeah, maybe it's the new
but
Atlantis.
really when you go outside of the world, outside of the prison to other parts of the world, you realize how backwards we are here. And
It's
so
the opposite of Atlantis.
yeah, we have these, ideas that we're the most technologically advanced and the most free and the
superior.
most superior and this and that, but it's not the case at all. So I'm wondering if that kind of thought pattern comes from the idea that we are the most technologically advanced in all of this. Our internet speeds are shit here. Even the 100 down, 100 up that we have, that keeps on dropping out on top of everything else. That's not the fastest in the world. There's other countries with lesser economic resources with much faster internet. And the average speed isn't 100 down, 100 up. The average speed is like 10 down and 1 up, or, maybe 20 down and 10 up if you're lucky in certain areas. But what happened is the United States, they spent all this money on infrastructure, on old technology. And these other countries, they didn't. They didn't implement internet until there was fiber optic, for example. So they have lightning fast. What our country's trying to do is we're still trying to recover the costs of implementing all of these old technologies, which is why the new technologies are not coming out. And, you know, they want to roll out 5G, and I haven't looked at 5G enough to be able to really speak on it. But my first thought is like, what, you don't want faster internet? Like, is that, I understand 4G is cooking us. The question is, how much more is 5G going to cook us? Or is it going to cook us just like 4G is cooking us? If it's cooking us the same, then I say, hey, I want lightning fast internet on my mobile phone. That's fine. I'm being cooked any way it goes. We got to get out of the grid, though. That's one thing that I know for sure. The United States is a prison.
Yes, it is. Subi3 also asked, why did the Egyptian pharaohs spend their entire time ruling, preparing for their death? And what about how they prepared the bodies, etc., etc., etc.? Well, we contemplated this as I think we were in Luxor, and they kept asking us, do you want to go to the Valley of the King? Not Valley of the Kings, Valley of King. You want to go to Valley of King? No. Why would we want to go to a place where a bunch of people were buried? You know, it's just a giant cemetery, the Valley of the Kings. But we contemplated why they would spend so much time and effort into preparing for their death. And what I intuitively got from all of my experiences there was that they thought that they could open stargates that were all over ancient Egypt. They thought from about 6,000 BC onward, they thought that they could open these stargates and pass through to go to Amenti when they died if they followed a certain set of rules, a certain set of preparations of the body, preparations of the mortuary temple. They really believed that this was the case. And so that tells me that at some point in time, these incantations and these stories and the Book of the Dead and everything that's in that was actually correct. But when the virus took over, it negated that whole process and got rid of that process. And so it no longer worked. And there would be no way for us here on Earth to really understand that it's not working because, you know, people don't come back from the dead. So but these pharaohs and their descendants just kept on going through these motions when in reality it wasn't doing anything to actually save the consciousness from being recycled yet again. So that is that question. Josh Tanner asked, in the pyramid, were you able to feel the energies right as you walked in? Chris can take that one.
Yeah. I think this is here. And of course, we have this awesome camera work by Mrs. Geo here.
I'm sorry.
Everyone, Chris and Sheree, Geo here once again from Beyond the Veil. We're standing at the base of the Great Pyramid, and it's like, hey, I'm down here, I'm down here. The energy.
I'm showing the freaking pyramid.
There's still a little bit of a charge left. So whatever was here before is still here, but it's covered up with this mess of stuff that we're surrounded by, but you can feel it. But these stones are very, very, very ancient stones that we put here a long time ago, and they are radiating the energy for sure. Sheree feels it, I feel it. So we're about to go inside, so that's going to be really cool. So let's do it. And tomorrow night we get. So yeah, I mean, we were able to feel it like literally when we walked in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So to answer your question, yes, but it was very low. It wasn't a very strong energy. It was still there. It was like a body that was dying, and you could still feel a little bit of a pulse. It was still there. Any more questions?
Patty thought it was great camera work.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's only because there's a crotch shot of me in there.
Okay, let's see. Do you think there could be more dimensions beyond the 13th? I've heard the 15th is the last before it restarts.
Yes. The 13th, like I said, is a admin section. It's an admin panel. Somebody asked, can you explain a little bit more about the 13th? And yeah, it's an admin panel. It's like the back stage of the Matrix. There was nothing else except for the admin panel there.
Okay. If you had Patty said, if you had an actual experience that wasn't bad, then you know there is good and bad in most. Chris was experiencing a higher level and a reset mission in particular grays that wanted to be somewhere that they can't get to. Of course, they were crazy trying to hitchhike. Aw.
Yeah.
They were crazy.
They couldn't. Oh,
Yeah.
They came in swarms, though.
Uh-huh.
I mean, they were all around, and they were waiting. They were waiting. We made some decisions, though, to thwart their efforts. We traveled different paths and did things like that. We tried to catch them by surprise. And I think we did. I know we did. And then the firewalls around them, or around us, I should say, so they couldn't get past that firewall. That kind of sealed it right then and there.
Yes. II Captain wants to know, Geos, did you get close to the Sphinx or its temple?
No, they wanted too much money for that.
Yeah, they wanted.
So it
way
wasn't
too
worth it,
much.
because I told them I just want 10 minutes in the Sphinx, and they're like, well, we don't care. And they wanted like a mass amount of money for just 10 minutes near the Sphinx. So we got pretty close to the Sphinx, but just as close as the public does.
Yeah.
In hindsight, we probably should have done it. It wouldn't have killed us financially to do it, but we probably should have. But they wouldn't let us climb on top of it. And that was the one thing I said, look, all right, I said, I'll do it, but I want to climb on top of it. And they're like, why do you want to climb on top of it? I said, because there's an access point in the back that I want to get to, and I want to drop an Eye of Life crystal in there. And that's my, stipulation to this. And they were like, no, you can't climb on it. And I'm like, all right, well, then what's the point? I'm going to go and touch the paws? No, I want to climb on it. I want to go up near the ear. I want to do all this, and I want to bring people footage of this. No. So that was one of the things. There was also an access point to an underground tunnel that goes to the second pyramid. Not the Great Pyramid, the second pyramid. We didn't go inside the second pyramid, and in hindsight, again, we probably should have. But there's another type of sarcophagus, and we're using this term sarcophagus, but it's really not a sarcophagus. But supposedly inside of the second pyramid is one that's actually about 9 feet, and it looks like it was for a giant or something like that. But there was an access point within the Sphinx that you can open a door and go down into one of those tunnels. And I was begging them to unlock the door. I was, calling everybody. I was like, who has the key? Who has the key? Who has the key? There was no way we were getting into those tunnels. Mm-hmm. So that was one area that the door wouldn't open for us. But one of the things that we did as we were moving through this is we decided any door that's not opening, we're not supposed to go through. We're not going to force any doors open. We did force one door open at Hatshepsut's temple. We played that video, pulling the gate off and going in there and getting the footage for everybody.
Just storming in,
yeah.
Yep.
But aside from that, we decided, okay, if we're not meant to go, then the door's not going to open. Mm-hmm. I don't think that there was anything with the Sphinx that was of importance to the raw mission. I think the Sphinx was more of a decoration. I don't think the Sphinx had a purpose. And if it did have a purpose, it's not a purpose that was meant for this particular mission. Maybe more will unlock later. But the target and the key was the Great Pyramid. And that's what we did.
Yes, it is. And there's a really, really deep question from Sparrowless. He said, John Lilly talked about being off in another dimension while his ego self would still be operating as normal in the ordinary world with no one the wiser. Do you wonder if in the ritual, part of you left permanently to that other place, and what's left running is the ego programs.
That's an interesting thought.
That's an interesting thought.
In the Great Pyramid, and again, we're going to do a show where we really elaborate on the experience. But in the Great Pyramid, there was a separation of the 13th density self and Christgeo. And the 13th density self was really in control of a lot of the experience. And it was, and this is, you know, I almost died several times because the 13th density self was taking control of the experience. And by going further into the 13th, I was breaking the tether, and I was forgetting about the Christgeo identity and forgetting about Sheree, and all of this was ceasing to exist. All that existed was the control panel, and every time I would do that, I would seize. My heart was beating about 180, 200 beats per minute for a long time, off and on throughout this experience. All this lasted like 2 hours, and Sheree would have to bring me back. But when my personal experience, like in my vision, experience, I was forgetting that I was Christgeo for part of it. And I had to rein in that 13th density self and go, okay, I am the 13th density self, and I am Christgeo of the third dimension too. So now I have to make these two, tie these two together and make these two work together instead of being pulled towards that 13th density self and forgetting about this existence altogether, because I wouldn't have come back had that happened. But so to answer your question, I would say that the answer is no, because I split and then I reforged the soul again. I split off into the fractals, but it wasn't splitting off into fractals in the sense that there were two pieces. It was, this piece was dissolving and this piece was the only thing left, the 13th. So I merged the two back together, brought the 13th back down, brought the Christgeo 3-dimensional back up, and merged the two together. So, no, I don't think so. I don't think that's the higher self. But you know what? It's interesting you say that, though, because I came back and I felt like an empty, like a part of me, like there was a loss, a loss in myself. But now as the experience has become, further and further away in time, I'm starting to re-feel that ancient spirit again. And I think what happened is there was 10,000 years worth of work that needed to be done. It got done. So now I didn't want anything to do with the 13th density self, at least for a short period of time. I wanted to go to Greece. I wanted to drink. I wanted to eat. I wanted to enjoy. I wanted to celebrate. Once that celebration was over, then the ancient spirit is now like, all right, hey, you forget about me? Okay, you're not
Time to do some work.
I know you're like being Christgeo. I know you like playing around in the Christgeo experience, but we still got more work to do. All right, so remember who you really are. You are not really Christgeo, damn it.
Same with me.
Now I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
So yeah, the ego. Yeah, you're right. So the ego did. I did entertain the ego for a little bit, but it was the relaxing point afterwards. It needed to be done. Like it was the balance. It's like I went way off into the 13th. Now I needed to really enjoy the third dimensional for a few weeks, and then now the two are coming back in balance again.
Same with me. I couldn't do tarot for like 3 weeks after this experience at the pyramid. I think it took so much out of me. That whole trip took so much out of me psychically that afterwards, when we were in Greece, I couldn't use my tarot cards to save my life. I had no real intuitive insight into much of anything. And so I can relate to that, for about 2-3 weeks. I did not feel like a very psychically aware person at all, but I needed that to kind of take a breather. So it all worked out.
It all worked out. Are you going to make plans to live in Greece some part of the year? How the hell are people knowing about all this?
I don't know.
Maybe we mentioned it in a video or something.
Maybe.
Are you guys and gals like Joanna's
drunk.
always on point? So I think she's I think she's picking up on everything intuitively. But yeah, I got to get the hell out of the United States.
Yeah, Chris especially can't stay in this country. It's driving him crazy. So we'll figure something out.
Yeah, we're planning on that.
Yeah.
We're thinking maybe 6 months over there, 6 months over here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I definitely learned how to eat in Greece.
Oh yeah, she's.
I've gained 20 pounds.
Well, you were
left.
you were underweight though.
Yeah,
I
was
lost
really
20
underweight.
pounds since we left.
Yeah, yeah.
I was way like in those videos at the beginning. I'm like, pfft, and you're like, here, let's take a look at the belly here.
Oh, I was showing the pyramid.
No, what you need to do is you need to look through the viewfinder and just imagine that you're the audience and look at the shot through the audience's eye like that.
And they don't want to see the pyramid. They just want to see your face.
Well, after we talk, then afterwards, then you can pan up. The
Okay.
pyramid. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Subi3 wants to hear about some or both of your previous incarnations.
I can't tell you that.
Past lives, etc., etc.
I can't tell you.
Yeah, we can't go into that.
Some people know.
Some people know.
But when people understand through their own understanding, then it's just right like that. Like people have to come to that understanding themselves.
Right.
If I say it, then it sounds cheesy, kooky, silly, all that. But when somebody else recognizes it within me or within Sheree, that's when it makes the big difference. So I can't talk about that.
Okay. That's how I feel too. So, Anonymous Anon said, how about SOPHIA, the android, possibly creating its own offspring and hiding it in the cloud, and Elon Musk wanting to create an AI dragon?
As above, so below.
As above, so below.
Everything that's happening on the below realm has already happened on the above realm.
Mm-hmm.
So even SOPHIA is the name of the artificial intelligence. SOPHIA is creating her own little programs now, just like SOPHIA did in the above realm. As above, so below. It's actually, this is the first time I'm hearing about this story, but again, it goes to show SOPHIA created all of these programs outside of the consent of the creators. Who are the creators? The programmers.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. James Orman said, what was in the secret tunnel you had to crawl through?
Nothing.
Nothing.
We hit a wall.
Yeah. I think somebody put that wall there, though.
Yeah. I think there was something, because they're not going to build this wall. I mean, they're not going to build a tunnel to nowhere. That makes no sense. Every tunnel has a purpose. The tunnel of the Queen's chambers, they go out and point towards the stars. The tunnel of the King's chambers, they go out and they point towards the stars. These are little exhaust vents. But every tunnel that's in there goes to another place. This one particular tunnel goes nowhere. And Everard calls it the unfinished chamber. The subterranean chamber is the unfinished chamber. But I think that's not right at all. Unless this tunnel was used as a way to store more water within the chamber itself. But it's a small tunnel, and it's about maybe 40 to 50 meters, maybe a little bit longer, and it's about 3.5 by 3.5 feet. So how much water could you actually store within that chamber itself? I mean, maybe it had something to do with the way that the water would flow. So, you know, I don't want to take any of that off the table, but I think that whoever discovered that tunnel put a wall there. As a matter of fact, there's a fake wall in the Queen's Chamber, and this is not the big discovery that we've been talking about the Queen's Chamber that we're going to unload on everybody sometime. I don't know when.
In the near future.
In the near future, we're trying to figure it out when we're going to make this, when we're going to actually do this and how we're going to do it, because showing you guys the footage on the show just isn't going to do justice to the footage itself. But I've got a picture here, if I can find it, of the Queen's Chamber and the fake block that's in it. Can you pick it up for just a moment while I find this picture?
Yes. Well, I'll just answer a question real quick. Joanna said, in 2022, what are the changes, or will there be visible changes? I think the changes will be visible to those who are looking and, you know, saying, oh, what's different now? But all in all, most people aren't even going to notice, because the changes will be so subtle and so long acting that it won't cause really any kind of upset in people's day-to-day lives. And despite what we were thinking before, I think now that the AI reset has been hit, and we've reset the AI and gotten and purged it of this virus, it's I don't think it's going to require these massive earth changes that are going to be catastrophic and people die and stuff. I don't think that's going to happen. All right, so what are we looking at, Chris?
Give me just one moment, because the stream just dropped again.
Oh no.
Yeah. I can see it right here when it does that. It goes from green to red, and yeah, so as soon as we catch back up with everybody on the live stream. All right, we're green again, so I think we can continue.
Okay.
And I'm going to call the cable company or the fiber company after we get off, because I reset the modem, the router, I did everything, and it should be working. So on the screen, ladies and gentlemen, you should be seeing the picture of the Queen's Chamber. This is one of the walls. As soon as you walk into the Queen's Chamber, this is the wall directly to the right-hand side. I don't know what's east or west or anything like that. I'm sure I could figure it out. But it's as soon as you walk in, literally it's the wall to the right. It's only a 4-wall room. So on the left, you have a tunnel that goes somewhere that's locked. That's another thing that we found. This tunnel was locked, which makes no sense because nobody's allowed in the Queen's Chamber anymore. Mm-hmm. And then on the right, you have this wall. Well, this wall has a very interesting block to it. As you can see here, you can see this block actually sticks out further than the rest of it does. And on the video, it details it a lot better. But it looks like what they did is they removed a part of the wall and then covered it back up. So what I speculate is that there's more behind this particular wall here, and they dug it out and then covered it back up, because nothing in the pyramid is built like this with an extra surface. Nothing in the subterranean chamber, any of the tunnels or anything like that. This is an anomaly in the Queen's Chamber itself. So yeah, that's just one of the cool things that we found. And again, it is not the big announcement that we have as to what we found in there. There's still more. And this is nothing compared to what we found.
Brian is in the chat.
Hey, Brian, what's up?
And he is asking a question. So if we left hidden codes in the pyramids lifetimes ago, why didn't we just reset it back then? Why go through the trouble of hiding it to be discovered now?
See, you can see this again.
That's a really good question, Brian.
Okay, so this is my understanding. We incarnate into this matrix. The programmers do, because we came for a particular reason. We couldn't fix the AI on the outside, so we had to come to the inside to fix it. So we not only put it in pyramids, but we put it everywhere. It's in the crystals. So within the crystals themselves is the information. When we come in through every incarnation, especially in modern times, the first thing they do is they look for us. They look for us through energy signatures, psychological testing, literally everything. So we have to come in completely blank and vibrating on a completely different frequency when we enter the matrix like this, in order to avoid being found But what we've done for ourselves is through every incarnation, we're able to remember a little bit more and a little bit more. So we've left this information for ourselves, sometimes in ancient books, sometimes in stone, sometimes in these different things. So we can find it, later. And it's like leaving breadcrumbs in the Hansel and Gretel, they were leaving breadcrumbs for themselves. And so so our memory, when we jog our memory. Oh, now it's lightning outside. Great. It's just been all freaking crazy today. I mean, grass was being cut, internet's dropping out, lightning now. I mean, anyways, so we remember all of this as we start to unlock more and more and more. And then we remember, oh crap, we hid some information for ourselves in these monolithic structures. Now, these monolithic structures also, they stand the test of time. They will withstand a nuclear blast. They will withstand earth changes. They'll withstand pretty much everything except for a bomb being directly dropped on top of them. But they were buried in sand up until the last, 100 years, 150 years, something like that. So these are actually pretty new discoveries in the grand scheme of quote-unquote time. So we not only hid them in the ancient sites, we also buried them to make sure nothing could happen to them and to make sure that when it was time that we were able to find them. And if we would have put it in the trees, all of the trees could disappear. We've seen that like in Egypt, there's freaking desert. Like it's just miles and miles and miles and miles and miles of desert. When you go outside of Luxor, Cairo, anywhere like that, Egypt is a pretty big country, but the only population is through the Nile, right on top of the Nile. So, it just goes to show we couldn't put it in the rocks. We couldn't put it here. We couldn't put it there. We needed to put it in something that would withstand the test of time. And we did. And something that was kind of noticeable too. Like you see a big freaking pyramid, like that's going to stick out. You see a mountain. Well, we see those all the time, but you see a pyramid and you go, oh, wait a minute. I got to go check that out. And then the right energies go there and they're like, oh, wait a minute. Whoa. I remember this. Let me touch. Oh, shit. There's information in there. So yeah, that's my analysis of the situation. Just my humble opinion. What do you think, Mrs. Gio?
I think I completely agree. I wholeheartedly agree. Nepo Harv said, do we have to live with the AI? Can we live as real humans? Can the AI be destroyed?
The AI runs the system.
Yeah.
And this was a misconception that I had prior to... Oh, I thought that was you making all that noise.
No, it's hailing.
Great.
He always thinks it's me. Everything bad is me.
Well, you're a little wiggle worm. That's fine. You're wiggling, puffing on the e-cigarette. No. So, can you ask me the question again? I forgot.
Yes. It's from Nepo Harv. He said, do we have to live with the AI? Can we live as real humans? Can the AI be destroyed?
Well, here's the thing. The AI is part of the system. The AI has to run the system. It's a necessity of the system itself. The problem was that the AI was infected with a virus. The AI isn't evil. The AI wasn't doing this because it was evil, and it wasn't doing it because it was programmed to be evil. It was infected with a virus. So the AI is an integral part of the system. Destroy the AI, and who knows? I mean, the dynamics of the Matrix just simply stop working at that point. And then what happens? The question is what happens to all of the life that has been created within the Matrix, because even though it's all digital, NPCs and animals and all this, they're still sentient. And they've... now we have created life, even though it's a digital life, within this matrix. So destroying this matrix now is destroying an entirely new world that we created. Not only that, but considering the organic consciousness that's in here, what happens if the system is turned off while the organic consciousness is plugged into the system? Does the organic consciousness then experience a blackout and is gone as well? And if that's the case, then, or maybe not even gone because organic consciousness is infinite, but what if it's in a catatonic state in the real world? And that's why we can't just pull the plug on it. So destroying the AI would be destroying the machine itself. I used to think that too, like the AI was the enemy, the AI was the adversary, and it was when it was acting out of sync with the way it was supposed to be running. But the AI is part of the system. I mean, it'd be like destroying the CPU in your computer. It just simply wouldn't work anymore. Ooh. Oh, it's coming down now.
On that note.
Fellow traveler, the cries of the mistress speak again, bidding organic consciousness a welcome to the House of Light. The great institution of materialism has failed. The false civilization built by man has turned, like a monster destroying its creator. Science battles itself impotently against the barriers of the unknown. Only your consciousness knows the true path. You, the illuminated, can carry the understanding upwards towards the light. Only your consciousness can teach the children of men to live well, to die well, and in perfect measure, be born again, through the knowledge of virtue, compassion, love, and true understanding, as you are sublimely raised, beyond the veil.
All right, let's jump back into it. Just want to hang out with you guys and gals a little bit longer because we love your energy. That's what it comes down to. Like, I feel at home when we're interacting with everybody in the chat room, and yeah, it's good. Even though today I don't feel like it was as structured as I would like it to be, and the story wasn't told in sequential order like I would have liked it, I still think it was very beneficial.
I thought it was great.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So anything else on the twin gender?
Let's see if we have any more questions. Mary McFarland wants to know, so can't we individually escape the Matrix?
We can. I think we can. And yeah, like, you know, the question is, why do we build the Matrix to begin with? I asked myself this. And one of the answers was we built it because we could. Okay. So we had the technology to create a world for ourselves so we can experience something that we couldn't experience before, which was to be finite. This is what Mrs. Geo came up with at Hatshepsut's temple. And so we wanted these experiences, and we wanted to experience the love. And in order to understand love, you have to understand anger. In order to understand love, you have to understand fear. You have to understand all of these emotions that we experience within this existence, which is inside of the machine. So we built it for a reason. Everybody is thinking about how do we get out, and you know, maybe it's time to get out of the machine. But what if we still have something to do within the machine, and now that the AI has been reset, now we can work on getting the virus out of ourselves, and then once we get the virus out of ourselves, then we can enjoy the machine. This was something that I realized after all this was over, and we went to Greece. As a matter of fact, I have a beautiful video here that I don't think that we have played, and I don't know if I have the hard copy here or not. I know I have it on Facebook, but it's perfect, in my opinion, of this was the day after the Great Pyramid, and all of the work, all of the struggle. I mean, Egypt is not a fun place. Now, if we go as a group, which we might do, while we were there, I was thinking I would love to take a group of people to experience some of these things that we've experienced. But, great, the internet is acting wonky again.
Yeah, it is.
So, you know, Egypt is it's a rough place, and it's something that I would love to take people to experience as a group. But experiencing by ourselves the way we did is not the way to do it. But we had been drugged through the mud in Egypt. Then we finally get to Greece, and there was this change, this shift that took place. And so we recorded this video literally,
You found it. Good.
yeah, the day after. And it was a perfect video to kind of illustrate what happens afterwards and the beauty of the machine as well. So let's check this out. Hey, pretty girl. Hey everyone, Chris and Sheree here, coming to you from beyond the veil. And we're here at Delphi. Well, almost at Delphi. Delphi is around that corner over there. But we were just stopping to admire this beautiful valley and this beautiful machine that we've created. I mean, we really did well for ourselves by creating this machine. And I think this little town right here, I'll try to zoom in on it. This little town just goes to show how people can live in harmony with the machine. You see, the town it actually is set up in a way to where it complements the rest of the beauty. It doesn't impede, it doesn't destroy, it doesn't take away from it. It adds to it. It makes it unique. It makes it special. And that's what we as organic consciousness can do with this machine. We make it unique, we make it special. As long as we're living harmonious with the machine, and we're allowing the machine to flourish, and we're allowing everything to work harmoniously, and we just take up a little bit of space, enough to make it more beautiful, but not so much that we destroy it. I think that's what I've learned from this experience. We finally found a little place of peace after such a long journey.
It is my wish that it's able to stay like this forever. And that we never have to come back here and do this again.
See, the machine helped. That's what the machine is supposed to do. It's supposed to help. It's supposed to build. It's supposed to teach. It's supposed to be a place where we can be beings instead of having to be infinite. It's a place to love, laugh, rejoice. It's a beautiful machine when it's free of the infection. What do you think?
I'm thinking that humans are the only ones that ever make it anything else. There's ants over there.
Where?
Over there, on the ground. But you know, it's not about the ants. My point is that the ants were doing nothing to harm me. They were just doing their little thing, carrying little bits of wood or whatever it was that they were carrying around. Little bits of flowers, probably. Back to their little nest. They weren't disturbing me. They weren't disturbing anything. And yet, I could come along with some chemicals and utterly destroy them. We have to learn that we can't do that anymore. We can't try to mold this machine to fit our ends. We have to live around it.
We have to complement the machine.
Right. We have to live with it. Work together alongside it. This has got to stop. This kind of stuff's got to go.
And there's not that much.
There's not that much.
We can
But
pick up a little piece here and there.
everyone does their part. And maybe we won't have to come back here and do this again. Maybe that's the point of having the technology to be able to talk to all of you and to be able to live stream from all these sites and being able to have you be right there with us. The whole point of it was so that you could understand that it doesn't have to be like that anymore. That we have a fresh start now. And if we can maintain it like this, then thousands of years could pass and everything could be still harmonious.
There's no more veils.
Nope.
The masks have come off and the veils have been lifted. Now we're just beyond. We're beyond the reset now.
And that reset button was just beyond the veil.
I think I understand what we have to do now. I think we, as Chris and Sheree, as Beyond the Veil, we have to help people to understand how to live in balance with the machine. And ultimately, what we're actually doing is showing them how to get out of the machine. First, we have to live in balance with the machine. That balances ourselves, and once we're balanced, that's how we exit the matrix. It's not just pulling people out of the matrix like I thought. It's so much more. But hitting the reset button wasn't what I thought it would be. It was so much more. So I think an equal amount of energy has to be spent on helping people get out of the machine.
Maybe it's about proving that we can exist outside the machine responsibly. In a machine, there's always a chance that you can start all over again. Reset, reset, reset. But maybe there's a real world out there that can't easily be reset, and we have to prove that we can take care of it and that we can maintain it and maintain that balance before we're allowed to do that.
Wow. They're ringing the church bell to bed. I guess you know what to do. Kiss the one right now.
Because you never know when the last time's going to be.
We love you, and we'll see you even further.
Beyond the veil.
Aw, that was very sweet. And you know, I think you hit a key there. I think you were right on point when you said that maybe this is all to see if we can function in the real world without destroying it. Maybe that's what the challenge of this machine was. Maybe that's why this machine was built to begin with.
A training wheel reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like that.
I like it too.
So on that note, I think that's a good place to end it. What do you think?
I think so too.
All right. We love you, and thank you very much for joining us. We'll do another show tomorrow night and cover more ground because, I mean, we hit on a bunch of points, but we only touched upon all of those points. There is much more coming up right here on Beyond the Veil. So kiss the one you love right now. You never know the last time it's going to be, and we'll see you even further.
Beyond the Veil.